and Harper Audio Australia present this unabridged recording of All Our Shimmering Skies, written by Trent Dalton and read by Ruby Rees. The dedication reads, for Fiona, Beth and Sylvie. The first sky gift. Molly and the epitaph. A bull ant crawls across a curse. The bull ant's head is blood red, and it stops and starts and stops and starts, and moves on through a chiselled gravestone letter C, and Molly Hook, aged 7, wonders if the bull ant has ever been able to see the whole of the sky, given all those magic gravity angles bull ants walk. And if it has no sky to see, then she will make a sky for it. The bull ant follows the curved bottom of a U and moves to an R and winds through a twisting S and exits through an E. Molly is the gravedigger girl. She's heard people in town call her that. Poor little gravedigger girl, mad little gravedigger girl. She leans on her shovel. It has a wooden handle as long as she is tall, with a wide, dirt-stained sheet steel blade with teeth on its sides for root cutting. Molly has given the shovel a name because she cares for it. She calls the shovel Bert, because those side teeth remind her of the decaying and icicle-shaped fangs of Bert Green, who runs the Sugar Lane Lolly Shop on Shepherd Street. Bert the shovel has helped dig 26 graves for her so far this year. Her first year digging graves with her mother and father and uncle. Bert has killed a black whip snake for her. Molly's mother, Violet, says Bert is Molly's second best friend. Molly's mother says her first best friend is the sky. Because the sky is every girl's best friend. There are things the sky will tell a girl about herself that a friend could never tell her. Molly's mother says the sky is watching over Molly for a reason. Every lesson she will ever need to learn about herself is waiting up there in that sky, and all she has to do is look up. Molly's bare feet are dirt-stained, like the shovel face, and there are copper-coloured lines of cemetery clay where her elbows and knees bend. Molly, who is right to consider this rambling and run-down and near-dead cemetery her queendom, hops onto a slab of old black stone and kneels down to put a big blue eyeball up close to the crawling bull ant, and she wonders if the ant can see the deep, dark blues in her eyes, and thinks that if the ant can see that kind of blue, then maybe it will know what it feels like to see all of the vast blue sky over Darwin. Get off the grave, Molly. Sorry, Mum. The sky is the colour of 1936, and the sky is the colour of October. Seen from the blue sky above, and looking down and looking closer in and closer in, they are mother and daughter, standing before a gold miner's grave in the furthermost plot, in the furthermost corner from the gravel entrance to Hollowwood Cemetery. They are older and younger versions of themselves. Molly Hook, with curled brown hair, bony and careless. Violet Hook, with curled brown hair, bony and troubled. She's holding something behind her back that her daughter is too busy, to Molly, to notice. Violet Hook, the gravedigger mum, always hiding something. Her shaking fingers, her thoughts. The gravedigger mum burying dead bodies in the dirt and burying secrets alive inside herself. The gravedigger mum, walking upright but buried deep in thinking. She stands at the foot of the old limestone grave, grey stone weathered into black, porous and crumbling and ruined like the people who paid for the cheap graves in this cheap cemetery, and ruined like Aubrey Hook and his younger brother, Horace Hook, Molly's father, Violet's husband, the penniless drunkards who are tall and black-hatted and sweat-faced and rarely home. The black-eyed brothers who inherited this cemetery and who reluctantly keep its crooked and rusted gates open, overseeing cemetery business from the pubs and the gin bars in Darwin town, and from a lamp-lit and worn red velvet lounge 5 miles away in the underground opium brothel beneath Eddie Loom's sprawling workshed on Gardens Road, where he dries and salts the Northern Territory mullet he ships to Hong Kong. Molly plants her right hand on the grave slab and, because she wants to and because she can, she spins off the gravestone into a series of twirls, executed so wildly and so freely that she's struck by a dizzy spell and has to turn her eyes to the sky to find her balance again. And she spots something up there. "Dolphins swimming," Molly says, as casually as she would note a mosquito on her elbow. Violet looks up to find Molly's dolphin, which is a cloud nudging up to a thicker cloud that Violet initially sees as an igloo before changing her mind. "Big, fat rat licking its backside," she says. Molly nods, howling with laughter. Violet wears an old white linen dress, and her pale skin is red from the Darwin sun, hot from the Darwin heat. She's still clutching something behind her back, hiding this thing from her daughter. "Stand beside me, Molly," Violet says. Molly and Bert the shovel, stout and reliable, take their place beside Violet. Molly looks at the thing Violet seems struck by. A name on a headstone. "Who was Tom Berry?" Molly asks. "Tom Berry was a treasure hunter," Violet says. "A treasure hunter?" Molly gasps. "Tom Berry searched every corner of this land for gold," Violet says. Molly finds numbers beneath the name on the headstone. 1868 to 1929. "Tom Berry was your grandfather, Molly." There are so many words beneath those numbers, cramped and busy and too small, filling every available space on the headstone. It's less an epitaph than a warning or a public service message for the people of Darwin, and Molly struggles to fathom its meaning. "Let it be known I died accursed by a sorcerer. I took raw gold from land belonging to the black named Longcoat Bob, and I swear, under God, he put a curse on me and my kin for the sin of my greed. Longcoat Bob turned our true hearts to stone. I put that gold back, but Longcoat Bob did not lift his curse, and I rest here, dead, with one regret, that I did not kill Longcoat Bob when I had the chance. Alas, I will take my chance in hell." "What's all the words for, Mum?" "It's called an epitaph, Molly." "What's an epitaph, Mum?" "It's the story of a life." Molly studies the words. She points her finger at a word in the second line. "A maker of magic," Violet says. Molly points at another word. "Bad magic for someone who might deserve it," Violet says. The child's finger on another word. "Kin," Violet says. "It means family, Molly." "Fathers?" "Yes, Molly." "Mothers?" "Yes, Molly." "Daughters?" "Yes, Molly." Molly's right forefinger nail scratches at Bert's handle. "Did Longcoat Bob turn your heart to stone, Mum?" A long silence. Violet Hook and her shaking hands. A long lock of curled brown hair blowing across her eyes. "This epitaph is ugly, Molly," Violet says. "Your grandfather has tarnished his life story with bluster and vengeful thoughts. An epitaph should be graceful, and it should be true. This epitaph is only one of those things. An epitaph should be poetic, Molly." Molly turns to her mother. "Like the writing on Mrs. Salmon's grave, Mum." "Here lies Peggy Salmon, who fished for love and wine, though it was no feast nor famine. She always dropped a line." "Will you promise me something, Molly?" "Yes." "Promise me you will read all of the poetry books on the shelf by the front door." "I promise, Mum." "Will you promise me something else, Molly?" "Yes, Mum." Promise me you will make your life graceful, Molly. Promise me you'll make your life grand and beautiful and poetic. And even if it's not poetic, you'll write it so it is. You write it, Molly. You understand? Promise me your epitaph won't be ugly like this. And if someone else writes your epitaph, don't make them struggle to write your epitaph. You must live a life so full that your epitaph will write itself. You understand? Will you promise me that, Molly?
I promise, Mum.
Molly wobbles her knees. Molly is restless. Because she wants to, and because she can, Molly drops Bert on the dirt and executes a cartwheel beside her grandfather's grave, and her yard dress falls down over her face, and she's blinded, and she can't nail the cartwheel's landing, and stumbles and falls into the dirt in a mess of legs and arms. Not very graceful, Molly, Violet says. Those poetry books will teach you how to be graceful. Molly brushes her floppy hair from her eyes and smiles. Violet directs the gravedigger girl back to her side with a sharply pointed forefinger. Molly picks up Bert the shovel and resumes her place close to her mother's hip. Be quiet now, Violet says. The stillness of this cemetery, this sun-baked dead collective. Dry season Darwin and every tree in the cemetery wants to burn. Darwin, stringy-bark eucalyptus trees leaning over graves so old their owners can't be identified. Woolly-butt trees, and their fallen and dead orange-red flowers surrounding each trunk like fire circles, growing in gravelly soil for 50 years and climbing as high as the shops on the Darwin Esplanade. Wild weeds and grasses creeping over memorials to carpenters, farmers, criminals, soldiers and mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters. Kin. The earth is swallowing up Hollowwood Cemetery. The dirt below it has eaten the dead, and now it chews on the evidence of their living. Molly breaks the silence. Molly always breaks the silence.
Is my grandfather down there?
Molly asks. Violet takes a moment to answer. Some of him is down there, Violet says.
Where's the rest of him?
Violet looks up at that blue sky the bull ant hasn't noticed yet. Up there. Molly flips her head back and takes in the sky, her eyes squinting in the Darwin sun at full height. The best of him is up there, Violet says. Molly readjusts her footing, shifts her right foot back, never turns away from the sky. There's a single dry season cumulus cloud on the left side of Molly's sky. A fluffy and heaped floating metropolis of warm rising air that looks to Molly like the foam that forms when Bert Green drops a scoop of ice cream into a tall glass of sarsaparilla. Everything to the right of that cloud is blue. Violet Hook follows her daughter's gaze to the sky, and she stares up there for almost half a minute. Then she turns back to stare at something equally expansive. Her daughter's face. Dirt across her left cheek. A blotch of breakfast egg yolk hardened on the left corner of her lips. Molly's eyes always on the sky. What is this place, Molly? Molly knows the question, and she knows the answer.
This place is hard, Mum.
What is rock, Molly? Molly knows the question, and she knows the answer.
Rock is hard, Mum.
What is your heart, Molly?
My heart is hard, Mum.
How hard is it?
Hard as rock,
Molly says, eyes still on the sky.
So hard it can't be broken.
Violet nods, breathes deep. A long silence now. Then 4 simple words. I'm going away, Molly. Molly shifts her bare left foot and turns her head to her mother.
Where you going, Mum?
She asks, her right hand driving Bert's blade haphazardly into the dirt.
You going to Catherine again, Mum?
Violet says nothing.
You going to Timber Creek again, Mum? Can I come too?
Violet's eyes turning up to the sky now. Another long silence. Molly banging her right heel into the dirt, waiting for her mum to respond. And Violet seems lost in that sky. Then she closes her eyes and reaches her right arm out to her daughter, and Molly watches that hand come all the way across to rest upon her left shoulder. Her mother's fingers are shaking, and Molly can see now that her mother's arms are thinner than she's ever seen them, her skin paler.
Why are your fingers doing that, Mum?
And Violet opens her eyes and studies her shaking right hand, close up, then hides it once more behind her back. She turns her eyes again to the sky. "I'm going up there, Molly," Violet says. "I'm going up there to be with your grandfather." Molly smiles, turns her head back to the sky, eyes alight.
Can I come too?
"No, Molly, you can't come too." And Molly feels thirsty now, and her belly turns inside her, and the toes of her right foot dig into the red earth beneath her, and she makes nervous fists with her hands, and the longest nails on her fingers dig so deep into her palms that they dig through the skin. Turn again to the sky. Turn again to Mum. "I'm not coming back down again, Molly." Molly shakes her head.
Why not?
"Because I can't stay down here anymore." Molly raises her eyes to the sky again. She searches for a town up there. She searches for the house her mum will stay in up there. She searches for streets in the sky and lolly shops and liquor stores. The town beyond the clouds. The town beyond the sky. "This is the last time you will see me, Molly."
Why?
"Because I'm going away." Molly drops her head, toes digging deeper in the dirt, and she wants to know how her mother pulls this magic trick, how she turns so quickly from the light and into the dark. She's daylight switching straight into nighttime, Molly tells herself. Day sky to night sky, with no living done in between, no time in between, no chores, no afternoon tea. Day sky blue with dolphin clouds to a night sky only black. "What are you feeling inside, Molly?" Violet asks.
I feel like I want to cry.
Violet nods her head. "Then cry, Molly," Violet says. "Cry." And the gravedigger girl's eyes squint, and her body shudders like it wants to vomit, and her neck jolts forward and she sobs. 2 brief sobs, and her eyes have to open wide for a river of tears that turn to tributaries that split through the dry dirt and dust on the girl's face. And these new waterlines on Molly's cheeks look to Violet like the creek systems she would see on her father's gold fossicking maps as a girl. "Keep going," Violet says, and the girl cries harder, and she puts her hands to her face, and fluid runs from her nose, and saliva drips from her lips, and her mother does not touch her, does not hold her, does not reach for her. "Cry, Molly, cry," Violet says softly. The gravedigger girl howls so loud that Violet turns her head instinctively towards the cemetery house beyond a cluster of trees, just in case that sound is loud enough to wake her husband from a long daylight liquor sleep. "Good," Violet says. "Good, Molly." And Molly cries for a full minute more, and then she swallows hard and wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. She grips a fistful of her dress and lowers her face to wipe it clean. Violet stands in front of her child now, hands still behind her back. "Are you finished?" Molly nods, snorting fluid back up through her nose. "Did you get it all out?" Molly nods. "Now look at me, Molly," Violet says. Molly looks up at her mother. "You will never weep for me again," she says. "Not a single tear will you shed for me from this moment on. You will never feel sorrow. You will never be afraid. You will feel no pain. For you are blessed, Molly Hook. Never let a single person tell you any different." Molly nods. What is this place?
It's hard, Mum.
What is rock?
It's hard, Mum.
What is your heart?
My heart is hard, Mum.
How hard is it?
Hard as rock. So it can't be broken.
Violet nods. No one can ever break it, Molly, Violet says. Not your father, not your uncle, not me. Molly nods. She watches her mother look back to the cemetery house. There is fear on her face. There is worry. Violet turns back to her daughter. Now, is there anything you want to ask me before I go? Molly's head down, staring at the dirt, staring at a platoon of ants marching towards her grandfather's grave.
Will I still be able to talk to you?
We can talk any time you want to talk, Violet says. All you have to do is look up.
But how will I hear you?
The girl asks. All you have to do is listen. Molly's head stays down. No, you can't be doing that, Violet says. You can't be keeping your head down like that, Molly. You must look up. You must always look up. Molly looks up. Violet nods, half smiles. Is there anything else you want to ask me? Molly scratches her face, twists her left foot in the dirt, something on her mind. What is it, Molly? Molly's screwed up face.
You're gonna miss my birthday,
Molly says. I'm going to miss all of your birthdays, Molly. Molly drops her head.
I won't get any more gifts from anyone,
Molly says. You'll still get gifts from me.
I will?
Of course you will. Molly points to the sky.
But you'll be up there.
Violet smiles. That's where the best gifts come from. Violet looks at the sky again. The rain, Molly, Violet says. The rainbows. The dolphin clouds, elephant clouds, unicorn clouds, the great big bolts of lightning. The sky gifts, Molly. I'll send them all down for you.
The sky gifts,
Molly says. She likes those words.
Just for me.
Just for you, Molly. But you have to keep your eyes on the sky. You have to keep looking up. Violet points at the sky. There's one falling now.
Where?
Molly gasps, scanning the blue sky. Violet points to the sky again. There, she says, and Molly squints her eyes and shades her face with her hands to block the glare. It's a gift from your grandfather, Molly. It's something he wants you to have. Molly bouncing on the spot now. What is it? What is it? It's how your grandfather found his treasure, Violet says, staring at the sky.
Treasure!
Molly says. We all have our own treasure to find, Molly. He wants you to find yours. Molly stares harder into the sky, but you can't see the falling sky gift. Keep looking up, Molly, Violet says. Just keep your eyes on the sky, Molly. Don't look away or you'll miss it falling. Molly stares harder into the sky, but you can't see the falling sky gift. Keep looking up, Molly, Violet says. Just keep your eyes on the sky, Molly. Don't look away or you'll miss it falling. Molly feels her mother move closer to her. Molly feels her mother's arms wrap around her shoulders. She feels her mother's lips against her temple. I'm going now, Molly, Violet says. But you must not watch me go. You must keep looking up. You must keep your eyes on the sky. And Molly looks at the sky, and looks, and looks. And she wants to turn her eyes away, but she listens to her mum. She believes in her mum. She believes her. And she never takes her eyes off that high blue roof, and she feels her mum move away from her, hears her mum's sandals crushing leaves and grass shoots behind her. And she wants to look away from the sky and turn her eyes towards those sounds, but she listens to her mum, because her mum is always right, always true, always graceful. You can write your own epitaph now, Molly. Further away. It won't be written for you. You can write it yourself. Just keep your eyes on the sky, Molly. Further away. Keep your eyes on the sky, Molly. further away. "Keep your eyes on the sky, Molly!" Too far away. Molly keeps her eyes on the sky, and she stares up at that sky for so long, she tells herself she will only stare at that sky for 60 more seconds. And she counts 60 seconds in her head, and when she has only 5 more seconds to count, she vows to count another 60 seconds, and she does. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She still can't see the sky gift. So she turns her eyes away from the blue, and she sighs, her belly still turning inside, and she whips her head round to where the last sounds of footsteps came from. She looks for her mother, but there are only trees and graves and weeds and mounds of pebbled clay covering the dead. Nothing else. And she stares into that still cemetery space, waiting for her mother to walk back into it. But she does not. An image enters the gravedigger girl's mind. A bull ant crawling across a curse. A single word carved in stone. Bad magic for someone who might deserve it. She turns to read her grandfather's epitaph, and resting upon the slab of stone by her twig-thin shin bones is a flat, square, cardboard gift box. It's wrapped in a ribbon tied in a bow. The colour of the ribbon is the colour of the sky. Molly leaps on the sky gift and shakes it in her hands. She rips at the ribbon and her belly isn't turning anymore. Her dirt and sweat fingers claw at the sides of the box. At last, an opening. And her fingers rip the thin, cheap cardboard roughly across the bottom edge, and something metal, something hard, slides out of the box and into her hands. She holds it up to the sky. A round metal dish. Solid copper, old and caked in dirt. She thinks it's a dinner plate at first, maybe a serving dish for sandwiches, but the dish has raised sloping sides and a flat base, and it's not much smaller than a car's steering wheel. And Molly's seen one of these before, in the back tray of her Uncle Aubrey's red utility truck, in the old metal box where he keeps his fossicking tools. It's not a plate, she tells herself. It's a pan. A pan for finding gold. A pan for finding treasure. And Molly Hook, aged 7, knows not what to say back to the sky for such generosity. So she looks up to it and says what she can only hope is graceful. "Thank you." And in the silence of the cemetery, the gravedigger girl waits patiently for the sky to say something back. Black Rock, Frog Rock. The gravedigger girl by the water, 4 days later. Molly Hook, kneeling on the muddy bank of Blackbird Creek, which runs along the eastern edge of Hollowwood Cemetery. She holds the sky gift. Earth, dirt and silt have turned the copper pan to a dark mud-brown colour. She fills the pan with dry creek bed gravel and duck waddles without standing into the shallow creek water. With 2 steady hands, she submerges the pan and the cleaner parts of its edge bounce sunlight off copper, and Molly mistakes these magic tricks of the light for early and miraculous strikes of gold. "Gold, Mum, gold." And she turns her head to the sky. "Is this you, Mum? Are you doing this? Can you hear me, Mum?" And it makes sense to Molly in this moment, when she is so close to her 8th birthday, that the god of minerals, that miserable and selfish spirit god of gold, that son of Zeus, Kyros, whose grave her father and uncle say they're always pissing on when they're liquored, would grant her a gold strike on this day. This strange day of all strange days. This dark mood of a day, when her father, Horace, and her uncle, Aubrey, are over there by the Black Rock Frog Rock beneath the sprawling milkwood tree, digging a deep dirt hole to rest another human body in for eternity. She watches them digging. Aubrey Hook is 2 years older than Horace Hook and half a foot taller. The brothers are aged in their mid-30s, but too much toil and too much Darwin's sun have dragged them prematurely into their 40s. Both brothers wear wide-brimmed black hats that shadow their hands as they break to open their rectangular and rusting Havelock tobacco tins and roll their smokes, silent as always. The men wear white cotton shirts and black trousers and black work boots covered in dirt. Their spines bend sharply at the top, as if their shoulder blades are pushing their heads over, like they were born disfigured, but it's all because of the shovel work. Digging graves for the dead, and all those years they spent digging eventual graves for themselves in the sorry rear end of the Northern Territory gold rush. It takes decades for a spine to assume the dig position, but it catches on eventually. Starts curling into a comfortable place, the way Horace and Aubrey will one day curl gratefully into a mud-caked brown dirt hole, just like the one they're digging beside the Black Rock Frog Rock. Aubrey has a moustache, but Horace does not. Red kerchiefs round their necks for sweat, white handkerchiefs in their trouser pockets to wipe dirt off their foreheads. Men of bone, and skin, and work, and broken sleep, and worry. Men who Molly believes might have been born in dirt. Men who did not come from the place she came from. Men who emerged from the earth they're always digging up. The girl knows if she drove Bert into her father's belly and stomped on the blade shaft with her right boot, she'd find the same red, yellow and brown earths she keeps finding beneath all these old black cemetery gravestones lining Blackbird Creek. She'd find the Darwin candasols her dad has told her about. Those hard top-end soils that hold little water, the sandy and loamy surface soils inside her own father. Then she'd dig deeper, and she'd find no innards in the man, no gut tubes, no organs, no heart, just the vertisols, the same cracking clays and black soils found beneath the top end's vast floodplains. She can't picture Uncle Aubrey's insides. Thinks he's hollow, like the dead, termite-ravaged trees that gave this cemetery its name. All he has inside is shadow. Black Rock, Frog Rock, Molly mumbles to herself as she pans. The Black Rock Frog Rock beneath the milkwood tree looks to Molly like the black rock frogs she always sees hopping through Hollowwood. The frogs remind her of burnt damper, hopping lumps of burnt bread. She likes those words. Black Rock, Frog Rock. She sounds like a croaking creek frog when she says those words fast. Black Rock, Frog Rock, Black Rock, Frog Rock. And she laughs. Molly shakes the pan from side to side, vigorously enough to turn the gravel, gently enough to keep the gravel in the pan. She takes the larger gravel rocks from the pan, washes them clean in the water, discards them. Circular pan movements now, revolutions of gravel and water as dirt and clay dissolve. The gravedigger girl's fingers working lumps of dirt and clay, working smaller rocks to the surface, letting their heavier minerals, the gold, Mum, the gold, settle at the bottom of the pan. The pan goes up and the pan goes down, and the dirt spins like the earth spins beneath Molly Hook's dirt-brown bare feet. And she searches for those flashes of gold for 45 minutes, and she never finds them. But after all the searching, all the sifting, she finds that the sky-gifted pan has been washed clean on both sides. The wet copper shimmers in the Darwin sun, and she turns the pan in her hands, and she guides a reflecting beam of the sun onto her left palm, and she wonders if the beauty of that light on her skin is prettier than any large nugget of gold she could ever find anyway. Maybe this was the kind of treasure her grandfather hunted across every corner of this land. The treasure of pure, golden light. She's tired now, and she lies back on the dry creek bed to rest, and she looks up to the wide blue sky, and she talks to it. She asks a question of it.
Why did you give me this?
And the sun blasts whiteness in her eyes, and she shields the sun with the perfect circle of the copper pan, and she wonders if that's why she received this gift, so she could look up and see only sky. But what she sees when she looks up is cursive. Words. A series of sentences roughly engraved on the underside of the prospector's pan. She reads the words with the same interest with which she reads the epitaphs on the crumbling gravestones of Hollowwood Cemetery. All those final, deep grief stories yielding clues to the lives of the departed souls, while the mud beneath her right forefinger nail underlines each strange word. The longer I stand, the shorter I grow, and the water runs to the silver road. She repeats those words to herself, repeats them over and over.
The longer I stand, the shorter I grow, and the water runs to the silver road. The longer I stand, the shorter I grow, and the water runs till the silver road.
From the words runs the etched line of what could be called a map. But it's like no map that Molly Hook has ever seen. She has seen maps of her country. She has seen the dot of Darwin resting like a jewel in a princess's tiara on the left-hand corner of the top of Australia. She has seen the rectangle of the Northern Territory wedged in straight lines between a mapped-out and vast Western Australia to its left and the eastern bulge of Queensland to its right. She has stared at the wondrous names of places she hopes to visit across her Northern Territory when she's done with digging holes for the dead and for her dad. Ald's Ponds, Tea Tree Well, Eva Downs Station, Waterloo Wells. Each place conjures a vision in her head. Blue ponds where long-legged white storks stand on lily pads the size of Roman shields that float across the noses of sleeping crocodiles. A deep well full of English tea, where fancy men and fancy women in fancy hats fill bone china cups as they watch lawn games unfold to the sounds of dappled sunshine violin players. A woman named Eva Downs, who looks like that actress Katharine Hepburn, and who runs a thriving cattle property with a shotgun in one hand and a martini in the other. That place in the central Australian desert where Napoleon fell back down to earth. Her father has a prospector's map of Australia from 1914. He keeps it in his workroom, off the main bedroom that Molly's never supposed to enter. The prospector's map doesn't even have Darwin marked on it. It doesn't even show the whole of the Northern Territory. That map is pink, and everywhere outside of what is mapped out as the states of Western Australia, South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria is marked simply with the word Aborigines. Depending on the wilting spirit or rabid desperation of the gold miner, these areas marked Aborigines were seen by Horace and Aubrey and their old gold miner friends as either dangerous no-man's lands or untouched gold-rich money fields ripe for a sharpened pickaxe. But this etched map in her hands is like no map Molly has seen. This is a map from a storybook. This is a map not of towns and cities, rivers and roads. This is a map of wonder and mystery, fortune and glory, and treasure. She remembers what her mother said. We all have our own treasure to find. A treasure map, Molly tells herself, as her fingernail traces the single etched map line down to a second set of words. West where the yellow fork man leads, east in the dark when the wood bleeds. She doesn't repeat these words because she can see more words below them and she's too desperate to follow the etched line that travels from northwest to southeast, now down the back of the copper pan in a shaky course to another set of words, and 1,000 blue butterflies are set free inside her stomach as she runs her short forefinger beneath them. City of stone, 'tween heaven and earth, the place beyond your place of birth. The map line runs on, and there are more words to be read on the pan, but they are covered in silt. She rushes into the creek water once more and uses her yard dress to wipe the back of the pan completely clean. And she must remember to breathe when she raises her grandfather's sky gift treasure map to the blue sky and reads the last collection of words etched into the pan. Own all you carry all you own, step inside your...
Molly!
Uncle Aubrey is shouting at her from beneath the milkwood tree.
Get out of the feckin' creek, child!
The gravedigger girl rushes and splashes out of the water and crawls up the creek edge, grasping at clumps of tall grass, to haul herself up and onto the cemetery grounds. Molly can see her uncle standing over the grave he's just dug, leaning on the long shovel he used to dig it. Her father stands next to him, his head down and his black hat in his hands.
Get over here, child,
Aubrey commands. His long, thin arms and his long, thin finger bones are waving her towards him, but she doesn't want to go there.
May I please stay here, Uncle Aubrey?
Molly calls.
No,
Her uncle says.
come here, now.
I don't want to go over there,
She says.
Get over here now, child.
Aubrey Hook barks. He's so tall and thin, and his wide-brimmed work hat is black like his eyes and his eyebrows and his gaze. And Molly wants to cry now to show her uncle that she's frightened. Cry, she tells herself. Cry, Molly, cry. Cry and he will understand you. Cry and he will care for you. But she cannot cry in this moment, no matter how hard she forces herself to.
Dad!
Molly calls, but her father says nothing, and she knows her father is weaker than her uncle.
Dad!
Molly calls again, but her father has gone away in his mind. Gone away, she tells herself. Gone away like Horace and Aubrey said her mum had gone away. They said she wandered off into the bush. They said she was lost in the wild and deep country, and she couldn't find her way back again. Back to Hollowwood. Back to Molly. Horace is frozen in this moment, head down, his hat in his hands.
You will come here now, child, and you will say goodbye to your mother.
Aubrey demands from the edge of the grave. Molly grips the sky gift copper pan and hugs it to her chest. I will never be afraid, she tells herself. I will feel no pain. Rock is hard, can't be broken. She shakes her head. No.
She's not in there,
Molly calls.
I beg your pardon?
She's not in that hole,
Molly says. She points to the sky.
She's up there.
Aubrey is momentarily stunned by his niece's words. He looks at her closely to see where they might have come from, which part of the girl's bent mind. He tilts his head and squints his eyes. Poor little gravedigger girl, he tells himself. Mad little gravedigger girl, he tells himself. Mad like her grandfather, mad like her mother.
What is that you're holding?
Aubrey barks. Molly is silent. He takes a few steps closer.
What is that you're holding, child?
3 more steps closer, and then he stops.
It's a sky gift,
Molly says, nervously.
It's my grandfather's pan. He wanted me to have it, so he dropped it from the sky.
Aubrey studies his niece again, and then he removes his black hat and wipes the sweat from his forehead. He breathes and sighs loudly, pulls a hip flask from his pocket, unscrews the cap and takes a long, hard swig. He pockets the flask and runs his dirty right hand across the stubble of his cheeks. And then he marches quickly to his niece, gritting his white wolf teeth, and he digs his wolf claws hard into Molly's right shoulder and pulls her towards the milkwood tree. As he drags her across the cemetery ground, he reaches for the pan in her hands, pulls hard at it. Give me that feckin' pan, he spits.
No!
Molly screams.
No, Uncle Aubrey, it's mine! It was given to me!
The tall black shadow uncle's hairy black wolf arms wrenches the pan violently from his niece's hands, and he tugs Molly Hook towards the milkwood tree and the black rock frog rock, and she digs her feet hard into the dirt to slow their movement, but the tall black shadow uncle is too strong. He grips her body like he grips a shovel. Closer and closer to the milkwood tree he hauls her, until she can see the hole in the ground. "No!" Molly screams. "Please, Uncle Aubrey, no!" A rectangular grave, with no headstone. A rectangular dirt prism of air, sunk into the earth, with no name and no epitaph. No story of a life. No existence. No goodbye. No luck. Her father stands at the foot of the grave. Her father can cry, and he's weeping here. Aubrey yanks at the girl's arm and swings her forward to the edge of the grave. "Say your goodbyes," he roars, furious and volatile. The girl's feet nearly slip into the grave, but stop at the edge where she can't help but look down inside the hole. She's terrified of what she'll see. But what she sees is nothing. What she finds is a dig with no end. The hole goes on forever. She could dive into that grave right now, and she could fall through the earth for eternity, and every muscle in her body wants to do just that. It's a bottomless grave. It's a black void. And this black void proves Molly Hook right, and she shouts at her father across the grave. "I told him, Dad! She's not down there!" She points to the sky. "She's up there, Dad!" Her father offers no response to his daughter beyond weeping. Her father has gone away. Gone away like Mum. "I will never be afraid," she tells herself. "I will feel no pain. I will feel only rage." Then Molly makes fists with her hands, and she clenches them so hard that her fingernails draw blood from her palms, and she screams, "She is not down there!" Aubrey steps to the side of the grave and talks to his brother calmly. "Control your child, brother." But Horace is blank. Horace only weeps. Molly's banshee screams echo across the cemetery, loud enough to wake its eternal residents. A scream from the bottom of the endless black void inside her, high and sharp and piercing. "She is not down there!" Aubrey shouts at his brother now. "Control your child, Horace!" But Horace Hook has gone away. Horace only weeps, and with every tear her father sheds, the gravedigger girl grows more and more hysterical. "What are you crying for?" she screams. "She's not down there! She's not down there! She's not down there!" And the gravedigger girl is silenced by the back of her uncle's knuckle and bone hand landing flush across her face. Molly Hook falls back hard on the cemetery dirt. She wipes her nose and looks at her fingers covered in the same blood that's spread across her face. "This place is hard," she tells herself. "Rock is hard. My heart is hard as rock," she tells herself. "I will never be afraid. I will feel no pain." Molly looks up at her uncle, who is still holding her grandfather's pan when he turns his back on Molly and looks back down into the grave. Molly stands and wipes her face with her yard dress, and she spits half a mouthful of blood on the dirt, and then she runs fast at her uncle, and she drives her shoulder hard into his back, and she pushes against him with her legs. She will send him to hell where he belongs, and the quickest route she can see is through that endless black void. But her uncle doesn't move. His bones are too hard from digging. His bones are too hard from living. "This is your grave!" Molly screams, pushing with all her strength as her bare toes slip in the soil beneath them. "This is your grave!" Then she gives up pushing against her uncle and reaches for the pan he holds in his right hand.
"This is mine!"
she screams.
"Give it back!"
She tugs on the pan and pulls back on it with all her strength and all that is left of her will.
"Give it back!"
Aubrey Hook is still gripping the pan when he turns and smiles at his niece, as though he's going to enjoy the thing he's about to do. And the gravedigger girl is still bulldog clinging to the pan when her uncle swings his right arm with such fury and power that Molly's feet are lifted from the earth and she is thrown through the air, and the only thing that stops her wild forward motion is the impact of her left temple meeting the edge of the large black frog rock next to the grave. Then she might as well be the one who is falling through that endless void towards hell, because everything in her world, even the day sky, has turned to black. The seed of a story. A black flying fox in the pre-dawn pink of a wet season sky. Gravity turns the fruit bat's feces into a teardrop, falling fast to the earth, and inside that teardrop is a single seed. Wind pushes the teardrop towards a eucalypt woodland in a vast understory layer of vibrant green speargrass. The teardrop falls hard and finds its own permanently moist pocket of earth. The sun rises and falls in the sky, and rises and falls in the sky, and the black flying foxes of the Northern Territory fly east and west with and towards their kin. Wet seasons turn to dry seasons and turn to wet again, and suns make way for moons, and then a tree grows out of a pocket of moist earth where once a fruit bat's seed found a home. It has rough, dark grey bark, stands 30 feet high and has glossy round leaves that bounce light like the inside of an oyster shell. And from among these leaves, on the morning of 7th of December 1941, a small round fruit appears before the world. It is the colour red, and it is ribbed all around. It is a red bush apple. Yukio Miki and the black dragon sky. His gloved hand reaches for her photograph in the grey blindness of a cloud. "Nara, make me strong," he whispers. The photograph is fading, stuck by gum above the circular fuel gauge of Yukio Miki's Mitsubishi A6M0 long-range fighter. The original photograph was wider. Naranui kneeling on the floor beside the right leg of her father, Koganui, who was seated on a wooden chair, his right palm resting on his right thigh and his left hand concealed by the long sleeve of his hemp and silk kimono, his winter kimono, patterned with pine trees that Yukio always considered a fair pictorial representation of Koganui's existence, towering and bristling and hard to kill with anything but an axe. Yukio sliced the photograph in half weeks ago with his pocket knife pressed against an aircraft carrier mess hall table in Hitakapu Bay in the Kuril Islands, leaving only Nara to grace the sacred gum space above his fuel gauge. Nara's not looking at the camera in the photograph, and she told Yukio she was looking, in fact, at her 9-year-old niece, Soma, who was walking precariously behind the camera on a pair of empty soup tins tied with rope. It was Soma who was making Nara smile so wide, she said. But Yukio knew the truth, that it was life that gave Naranui her smile. It was children and snow and harlequin ducks bobbing along clear water streams, and it was fat fish hanging from her hook, and it was a red paper kite stolen by the wind and carried across southern Osaka. It was the air and the sea and the sky that formed that smile. Nara wears her one and only kimono in the photograph, patterned with plum blossoms, winter cousin of sakura, cherry blossom. The plum blossoms always bloomed in time for the cold days when Nara would nestle into the soft cushion of flesh between Yukio's right breast and right shoulder. He would feel her lips moving on his chest as she spoke of their love and their future, and all he saw as he lay with his back on the snow-flaked grass were the gold hearts of hanging white plum blossom flowers against a sky as grey as the cloud he flies through now. It felt, then, like Nara was talking to his chest on purpose, and when she whispered, "Suto," eternally, she really was meaning to say it up so close. She meant to say it directly to his fast, beating heart. There was a parachute pack stuffed behind his seat. Few Zero pilots carry parachutes. He could slip his on here now in the cloud, he tells himself. The Zero's cockpit can't be jettisoned, but it can be opened in flight. He could exit here, slip away unseen by his brothers and feel no shame. The high winds of the Pacific would carry him to a tropical island, carry him to Egypt, to Paris, to London with its big round yellow ticking clock in the night sky. A strong enough updraft could lift him and his parachute up through the clouds, even through the sky and the stars and into Takamahara, the plane of high heaven. No, he tells himself. A Zero samurai fights to the death. Death, he tells himself. Death. The only answer to every question he ever asked about life. The shortest route to heaven. The quickest road to Nara. The short sword that rattles against metal in the left side gap between the Zero's pilot seat and cockpit door is called a wakizashi. The short sword's blade is only 30 centimeters long. Wakizashi swords were traditionally made for close-quarter fighting or to commit seppuku, ritual suicide. But Yukio carries the sword today not for the sharpness of its blade, but for the power of the object's story. A gift from father to son. A sword more than 2 centuries old, passed through the hands of Miki men, all of whom, with the exception of Yukio, the fighter pilot, worked in the artisan knife-making workshops of Old Town Sakai, on the edge of the Osaka Bay, at the mouth of the Yamato River. There is an image of a butterfly engraved on the handle end of the sword's blade. The blade was forged in the Miki family workshop in the heart of Sakai, a bustling fishing port and one of Japan's busiest and oldest foreign trading hubs, filled with the sacred air of maritime commerce and tuna blood and the guts of fat, red queen crabs. It was in the same modest and small and well-kept laneway knife-making workshop that Yukio's father, Oshiro Miki, passed the wakizashi to his firstborn son, then aged in his mid-20s, on the day he left Sakai to join his military brethren in the selective and punishing Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service pilot training program. Oshiro had told his son the story of the sword's creation many times, but on this day of sad departures, he felt he needed to tell him again. "No more stories, father," Yukio pleaded. He had grown tired of his father's stories. As a boy, Yukio had lived for his father's tales. Tales of how the Miki family had been making blades for 600 years. Tales of samurai swords forged for great warriors. Tales of how the flames of feudal war were finally extinguished and the need for samurai swords was blown away with the ashes of the dead, and how the Miki family elders then turned their sword-making skills to creating the sharpest fishermen's filleting knives in all of Sakai. Knives forged for cutting the heads off tuna that could still carve through the neck bones of any fisherman foolish enough to doubt the integrity of Miki family steel. Yukio would sit for hours behind the workshop counter on an upturned wooden wash bucket, polishing and sharpening filleting blades as he watched his father dazzle fishermen with increasingly elaborate tales of each sold knive's mythic creation. Fishermen from the Black Sea and from the Mediterranean and the Pacific and the Atlantic, and from seas as high and cold as the world went and as wide and warm. They would come to Sakai Port to hear Oshiro Miki tell his knife-maker tales. And every single week, young Yukio was surprised to find that his father had miraculously acquired a new sacred and old blade that he had promised never to part with, but might consider selling to one lucky foreign fisherman if he deemed him worthy of the knife's ownership. "You can carry yourself with honor," Oshiro would say to that week's particularly fortunate customer. "You have treated my family and me with respect, and for this kindness I will repay you by showing you a most uncommon blade. I will now tell you the story of this blade, but you must never repeat it, and you must never speak of where you found this blade." What followed was usually a tale of adventure, courage, sacrifice, tragedy, and always true love. The blade Yukio's father held in his hands was invariably the sacred object with which the tragic hero of each story managed to overcome a malevolent force, deceitful loved one, old wizard, seductive witch, many-limbed sea monster, standing in the way of true love's triumph. Oshiro would complete these lucrative counter-transactions and then turn to his son and whisper about the wonders and importance of the story. "The finest blades are forged not with steel, son," he would say, "but with story." Oshiro Miki knew full well that his customers would speak freely of where they found their precious new blades. He knew his strict requests to keep his hallowed workshop and its treasured stories secret was the very reason Miki family blades were spoken about over tuna nets and chopping boards across the globe. As Yukio grew into his teens behind the workshop counter, his father taught him how to sell these knife stories to foreign travellers in broken English and broken French and broken Spanish. The stories, he said, could sound even more mystical and significant when told in a few carefully selected English words. "Love," Oshiro hollered in perfect English to a wealthy American couple sailing the seven seas, oil money spilling from their pockets. He waved his hands excitedly at the long-married husband and wife. "I see. Love," he declared. And then he explained in broken English that the word love was his favourite word in the entire English language because it was the first word of English he ever learned. How perfect, Oshiro recognised, and how fortunate was he that the first word of English he ever learned was also the language's most profound and sacred and joyous. "True love," he said with a smile. And Yukio watched as the Americans smiled with the newfound knowledge that their shared love, despite whatever feelings they may have harboured to the contrary, was clear and strong enough to cross even the divides of sea and language. Then Yukio's father spoke of how that couple's true love reminded him of a true love story behind a sacred and expensive wakizashi that he just knew would make the perfect souvenir to show their many friends back home in Pennsylvania. "Was love the first word of English my father learned?" Yukio asked his grandfather, Saburo Miki, who was an old and quiet and thoughtful man, as they washed dishes that night. "Ha!" Saburo laughed. "The first word of English your father learned was dog. The second word he learned was fish." "Then my father is a liar," Yukio said. "Your father is a storyteller," Saburo said, washing thick brown fish sauce off a dinner plate. "He tells those stories to fill this plate for you each night. There is a difference between liars and storytellers, Yukio." The grandfather passed the clean dinner plate to his grandson. Some storytellers still make it to heaven. Just one more story, Oshiro Miki said, holding the wakizashi in two hands before his son. He prefaced this story, as he'd done every other time he told it, by acknowledging its more questionable narrative turns. For this story to reach your heart, son, you may need to swallow it down with a sprinkling of salt from the shores of the inland sea, Oshiro said. You should write the facts of this story only on tissue paper, but you should carve its meaning in stone. Yukio patiently and respectfully listened. Again, as his father spoke of how the short sword was made in the 1700s by a quietly spoken and diligent knife maker named Asato Miki, who had discovered that the love of his life, Rina, had left Sakai in the arms of his younger brother, Uno. All but swallowed up by the dark shadow of grief and betrayal, Asato Miki willed himself to forge the perfect wakizashi blade, with which he was determined to cut out his own beating heart and toss it into the furnace that had forged his own murder weapon. For such an impossible act, Asato reasoned, he would need to forge an impossible blade, and in a single dizzying 24-hour haze of fevered and hate-filled industry, Asato hammered two types of metal together: soft and workable jigane iron and hard and deadly tahamagane steel. In a furnace so hot he could only work in 30-minute blasts of furious activity between guzzles of fresh water fetched by his apprentice, which would also serve to cool and harden the blade. Asato felt so strong that day that he came to believe the very breath of Futsunushi, god of swords, had filled his workshop, and a dragon's fire had filled his blood. Asato forged the two metals into a single blade so sharp it cut the 4 legs off the bed he had shared for 3 years with Rina in 4 swift strokes. The tortured ironworker was stunned by a newfound artistry born of pain. He was more stunned still to discover that the joy of his newfound gifts had swallowed up the sorrow that had driven him to make the sword in the first place. Asato began demonstrating and advertising his miraculous ironwork skills in sake houses across Sakai by having loose-pocketed drinkers throw objects, apples, oranges, carrots, potatoes, unlucky alehouse kitchen rats at him, each of which he would slice into 2 perfect halves with a single swipe of a short but swift sword as thin as a Yamato river ghost. One day, a legendary vagabond assassin known as the White Tiger sailed into the Sakai port. His thick mane of pure white hair braided and hanging almost to his calves. He began asking questions about an impossible blade forged by love and betrayal and loss and hate. "That sword is not for sale," Asato told the stranger in his workshop. "What if I told you the first person I will kill with this blade will be your betrayer, Rina?" The White Tiger asked. "And what if I told you the second person I will kill with this blade will be your younger brother, Uno?" Asato was silent for a moment. "The sword is not for sale," he said. The White Tiger reached into a leather pouch slung to a belt around his waist. He raised a closed fist, then opened it to reveal a pure white butterfly, which launched into flight from the assassin's soft, open palm. "Have you heard the story of the gravedigger and the butterfly?" the assassin asked. "I have not," said Asato. And so now, Oshiro Miki told his story of how the White Tiger told his story of Takahama, who was born into wealth and was highly educated, but, despite his good fortune, chose, in the prime of his life, to spend the rest of his days alone, digging graves and tending the headstones of the dead, as caretaker for what was believed to be the most haunted cemetery in all of old Japan. So humble was the caretaker's hut, connected to the cemetery grounds, that Takahama's wealthy and influential family refused to visit for fear of embarrassment. Years later, when two neighbouring villagers stumbled upon an aged Takahama slowly dying alone on his bed, they called for the cemetery keeper's remaining relatives to visit him at once. Takahama's long-lost nephew, Hansuke, made it to the old man's bed just in time to witness his final hours of life. As Takahama drew his last laboured breaths, a pure white butterfly flew in through his window and perched itself peacefully on the tip of his nose. The butterfly flapped its wings once, twice, 3 times. Hansuke shooed the butterfly away, and it flew off and returned, and flew off and returned to the tip of the old man's nose. Then Takahama's eyes closed forever, and the white butterfly seemed to know this and flew back out the window. Instinctively, Hansuke followed it deep into the haunted cemetery. He ran through grey and black gravestones covered in weed and moss, aisle upon aisle of never-visited dead. The white butterfly flew left and flew right, and then deep into a tunnel of elm trees that ended at a single tomb, where the butterfly rested itself on the only grave in the cemetery without a trace of moss or dirt upon it. Indeed, the grave was as pristine as if the headstone and tomb had been placed that very day. There was a name on the headstone, Akiko. Studying the gravestone epitaph, Hansuke began to piece together the story behind his late uncle's decisions. Akiko and Takahama had been betrothed, but Akiko had died the day before the wedding. Since Takahama had already promised to look after his beloved Akiko every hour of every day, he swore he would continue to do that, even if it meant caring only for her grave. As he stood pondering this, Hansuke noticed another small white butterfly emerge from the dense forest surrounding the cemetery and flutter towards the one he had followed to the grave, which was still hovering above the headstone. The two white butterflies circled each other for a long moment, and then Hansuke edged closer to them. But his moment caused the butterflies to fly away from the headstone, and they fluttered up into the sky and never came back down again. The nephew stared at that blue sky above, not with a sense of grief or confusion, but only wonder. Osato Miki stroked his chin inside his knife-making workshop, absorbing the assassin's tale. "Well?" the assassin asked. "Well, what?" Osato replied. "What did you learn from the story?" the assassin asked. Osato stroked his chin some more, then gave his answer. "It is a simple tale you tell, and there is only one lesson to be learned from it," he said. "Transformation. Sometimes they stay with us, and sometimes they wait for us. The lost are not lost. We can change into things. We can transform ourselves. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse," said the assassin, his eyes turning to the pure white butterfly that was now flapping above his right shoulder. He turned back to Osato. "I must take your life now," he said. "Why?" Osato asked. "Because you will not share your artistry with me." "But you haven't given me a chance," Osato said. The assassin paused. "Very well," he said. "Show me the full extent of your artistry." "How would I do that?" Osato replied. The assassin turned his eyes to the butterfly. "Take your sword and slice a wing off this flying white butterfly." "That's impossible," Osato said. "So is your blade," the assassin said. Osato took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. He retrieved his impossible sword from a small, locked room off the workshop's furnace area and returned to stand before the butterfly and the assassin. He gripped the sword's handle tight and raised the perfect blade high as the butterfly hovered, as if by will, as if by command, before his eyes. The betrayed swordmaker drew a short breath, tensed his shoulders, fixed his feet to the floor, and began to swing his blade. But he immediately pulled out of the swing and presented the sword to the assassin, handle end first. "I can't," he said, shaking his head. The assassin raised his eyebrows. "The butterfly's life is already too short," Asato said. The assassin lifted the sword to his eyes, laid his forefinger gently on the blade. He turned to face Asato and swung the blade 3 times. The sound of steel slicing through the air was the only evidence of his actions, the blade moving too fast to be visible. Asato heaved a long sigh of relief on realizing that he was still breathing. The white tiger rested the sword in his open palms, then handed it back to its creator. "You are right, knife maker," he said, before turning and exiting the workshop through its rusty, hinged wooden front door. Asato stood in silence, then rushed to the door, just in time to see the assassin disappearing into the bustling port village crowd, the pure, white butterfly hovering peacefully above his right shoulder. "Well?" Yukio asked. "Well, what?" Oshiro replied. "What are you trying to tell me, father?" Yukio asked. "The lost are not lost," Oshiro Miki said in the silence of the Sakai workshop. Yukio nodded his head in understanding. "There is something I must tell you about sad love stories, father," he said. "They are not as enjoyable when they are true." Oshiro was silent. Then he nodded sincerely and said, "The lost are not lost. Sometimes they transform. Sometimes they stay with us." And it was with 2 open palms that Oshiro Miki handed the old fire-forged short sword to his firstborn son, Yukio, before he set off to war. Yukio received the sword in silence. He walked to the front door of the workshop, then turned to speak to the father he loved. "And sometimes they wait for us," he said. Yukio left his father in the workshop and walked out the door in the direction of war. This is the end of CD 1. The book continues on CD 2. CD 2. Nara, smiling at him now in a winged weapon. Now the deep hell machinery sound of Yukio and his airborne brothers, who do and do not fear their death, spread across an attack wave of 183 battle planes in arrow formations, 89 Nakajima B-5N bombers carrying 800-kilogram torpedoes and 250-kilogram bombs, 51 Aishi D-3A dive bombers, each with a 250-kilogram bomb slung under its fuselage, and 2 30-kilogram bombs nestled on racks under its wings, and 43 agile Zero fighters flying above it all, closer to the blue sky ceiling, closer to heaven. The vicious snarl of that sound, the growl of it, the wasp of it, the tiger of it, a violent symphony of 3-blade propellers slicing air and overworked engines spitting smoke, red spots on battle wings, all those red rising suns in a morning sky formation. Yukio's cockpit canopy has a 360-degree view of sky, water, and land. A high green mountain range on Yukio's right side, cloud on his left. It's 7:48 a.m. and he's been flying for 1 hour and 40 minutes. The air fleet banks west and along a turquoise coastline, and Yukio reaches quickly for his binoculars. 2 glass lenses magnifying the beauty and terror of 8 majestic battleships lining the port of Pearl Harbor, on the island of Oahu, Hawaii. There are smaller grey warships anchored around them, like mice sleeping beside greyhounds. Yukio drops his binoculars and his naked eyes find the black dragon, an electrifying dark blue flare that's now rising into the light blue sky. They don't know we're coming, Yukio tells himself. The fleet's leader, Captain Mitsuo Fushida, is speaking loudly and clearly to Yukio and his brothers with that dark blue flare. Speaking without speaking. He's saying only one word, screaming it through a burning and soaring dragon flare streak, demanding it. Just one word. Attack. Yukio's left hand reaches for the gun sight fixed between his 2 7.7mm machine guns. His right hand reaches for the photograph fixed above his fuel gauge. He folds the top half of the photograph down over the bottom half. He doesn't want her to see this. "I'm coming, Nara," he whispers, as his fighter swoops down towards a horizon lit by fire. The ways in and out of the maze. Here lies Lisbeth Fleming, dead at 73, influenza. Buried 1884. Here stands Molly Hook, aged 12 years and 9 months, 4 feet deep in Lisbeth's grave. Bert's blade biting through old dirt that's meeting the sun for the first time in 57 years. "Water?" Molly asks. "Break at 5 feet, says her father, Horace. "These old gravediggers always took shortcuts. They usually called it quits at 5.5. A gravestone. A hole in the ground. The girl in the hole, and her father and her uncle, Aubrey, leaning on their shovels above ground, each taking a side of the grave. Around the grave are mountains of dirt and a single pile of rocks beside the rusting mattock that was used to dig them all up. Molly digs. Molly digs. Molly digs. She wears old brown leather boots, her dig boots, and a pair of brown pants made for boys that Horace found in a Tennant Creek thrift store. Molly digs. Her thin arms, only bone and muscle, filling a wooden bucket with grave dirt that her father and uncle pulled to the surface after every 8 shovel loads. "Dad!" Horace takes a long drag on his smoke, exhales. He offers Molly. This is her permission to speak. Molly digs hard as she talks, heartened by her father's permission to do so. "I was just thinking about how I've dug up 6 already this week, and this will be my 7th, and I've been working real hard with the customers as well, and I was wondering if you would let me go to the Star with Sam on Saturday night." "I can't afford for you to go to no picture theatre, Molly," Horace says. No, Sam said he's going to pay for me," Molly says. "Who's Sam?" "Sam Greenway." "The coon boy?" Just Sam and nothing else, Molly thinks. Her best friend who's not a shovel or a sky. "Sam's good stock, Dad. He works hard and he's real smart, and he's been telling me all there is to know about what it's like growing up out there in the bush, in the real deep country past the Clyde River." "And what does Sam tell you about what it's like out there in the deep country?" Molly stops digging. She turns to her father, up there on the surface, sun shining over his shoulders and onto her face. She puts a palm over her eyes. "He says it's magical," Molly says. "He says there's crocodiles in the creeks as old as dinosaurs, and the crocodiles talk to him, and he says there's plants out there so big that their vines can suffocate you in your sleep, and there's trees with bark so soft you can roll it up and sleep on it under the stars, and the trees talk to you too. Then there's Old Man Rock, and he's just a big rock, but he knows the answer to
any question you could possibly think to ask him.
Horace Hook scrapes a cake of mud from the sole of his left boot with a stick.
I hope he told you, too, about all the criminals who live in shacks and caves out there, he says. Did he tell you about that, Mole? Murderers on the run from the law, hiding themselves in scrubs so thick and dangerous the cops would never dare go after 'em. Thieves and rapists, living on river rats and peanut bushes. Men sick with pox, women going brain mad with syphilis. Kidnappers who'd swap a 12-year-old girl's virginity for a can of oil. Lunatic child killers who'd cut a girl's heart out and trade it for a fresh orange.
Molly is silent, her eyelids blinking.
No, she says. Sam said nothing about that.
You go walking too far into that deep country, you might never come back, Horace says. So no more bloody walkabouts, Molly. You hear me?
I hear you.
Dig, Molly. Dig.
Molly digs. Horace smokes his strong tobacco and enjoys the quiet for a moment. Then Molly breaks the silence. Molly always breaks the silence.
Sam told me how to eat an echidna, even though I thought it would be impossible to eat an echidna, she says,
dropping another dirt load in the wooden bucket.
Do you want to know how to eat an echidna, Dad?
Horace sighs, drags on his smoke. How do you eat an echidna, Molly?
The trick of it is all those spines on top, of course, she says. But Sam says you just cover the spines with a thick layer of clay, you know, like that red ferrocell stuff you told me about. Then you whack the echidna on the fire, and when it's all cooked, you take it out and let it sit, and then you peel back that layer of clay on top and all the spines come off with it. And it's like you're peeling back the lid of a can of sardines, except that what you have underneath those spines is tastier and oilier than any duck you'd find on a plate in Paris.
Molly digs, transfers the dirt, counts off the 8th shovel load and lets her uncle heave the wooden bucket to the surface.
The star's playing The Cowboy and the Lady with Gary Cooper, Molly says. You'd like Gary Cooper, Dad. He doesn't talk much in the pictures. He's all quiet and serious, like how you and Uncle Aubrey are.
Molly looks at her father and, as he always does, her father looks at his older brother, Aubrey. And Uncle Aubrey briefly shakes his head from side to side.
But I haven't been...
Quiet now, Molly, Aubrey says, his lips unseen beneath his black moustache.
But...
Dig, child, dig, Aubrey grunts. Molly digs. 1, 2, 3 shovel loads. 4, 5, 6 shovel loads. Bert the shovel clangs against a large rock buried in the grave soil. Molly reaches for a forged steel spud bar leaning against the right side grave wall. With both hands, she drives the spud bar, wedged at the business end, clean into the rock 3 times, and the rock breaks into 3 smaller pieces that she hacks out with a smaller pickaxe. More shovelling. 7 shovel loads. 8 shovel loads. Total silence. Horace hauls the bucket up the side of the hole. Molly watches a long black earthworm wriggle along the north wall of the grave, up, up, up towards the surface. Her eyes go up with the worm and a little further up to settle on a view of Lisbeth Fleming's headstone.
Who was she?
Molly asks. Who was who? Horace replies.
Lisbeth Fleming?
She wasn't anyone.
Everybody's someone, Molly says. You reckon she's still got family in town?
The men say nothing. Aubrey pats the deep lines in his forehead with his handkerchief.
Matthew, Iris and George, Molly says, reading the headstone epitaph.
Molly's right boot kicks hard at Bert's blade, and the bucket is back to receive another shovel load. She pauses to read more from Lisbeth Fleming's headstone,
Matthew, Iris and George were her kids, Molly says. I wonder if Iris is Iris Brentnall, who worked behind the counter in the saddlery in town.
Aubrey Hook takes a long swig from a rusting silver hip flask, directs a sharp and perturbed look towards his younger brother across the grave. Quiet now, Molly, Horace says. Molly digs and Bert's blade tip thumps against wood. Molly bangs the blade twice more. Thump, thump. Aubrey shifts his smoke to the left side of his lips and leans down slowly, bones aching, to grip the mattock resting by the piles of dirt. Out, he says, through his near-closed lips. Molly turns and scrambles up a small wooden ladder resting against the south wall of Lisbeth Fleming's grave. Her father hands her a brown leather water bag. She unscrews the cap and guzzles down the liquid, letting it splash across the soil, covering her face and neck. Aubrey doesn't use the ladder, simply slides down into the grave, his black boots landing heavily on Lisbeth Fleming's rotting wooden casket. His right boot scrapes away the dirt on the casket top, searching for an entry point. He stomps his boots 3 times, testing the thickness of the wood. On the third stomp, he finds a softer, rotted section. He raises his mattock high with a 2-handed grip and drives the mattock down on the casket like he is staking a claim in the earth. Old wood cracking, splintering. Aubrey raises the mattock at the same point, drives it down again. The shiver along his worn spine is the same shiver of expectation he used to feel in the gold-digging years. A gold shiver. It was the thrill of mining a hole where you could smell the gold, and that smell turned into a taste, and that taste was blood and metal on a tongue tip. The gold in all those deep rocks was all buried treasure. He and Horace and Violet's father, Tom Berry, and all those Chinamen who followed them down into those holes were all pirates, except they had no treasure maps to work from, only their instinct, only the shivers that ran along their worn spines. That shiver meant success. Aubrey wedges the mattock between the casket top and its side and pushes hard. Molly, from above ground, watches the casket lid flip up from the dirt like a lid of a jewellery box. But there is no jewel sparkle to be seen inside Lisbeth Fleming's coffin. Only bones. The casket's bottom has largely disintegrated. A skull with a mouth full of dirt. Dirt in the eye holes. Dirt in a cracked cheekbone. I will never be afraid, Molly tells herself. I will feel no pain. Arm bones and hand bones resting upon each other, meeting at the waist of a torso that time and slow earth movement have torn away from Lisbeth's leg bones. There is a book by her waist that Aubrey digs from the earth, prizes open with 2 hands, pages fused together by decades of damp. Bible, he says, tossing the book to the side of the grave. There is a round tobacco case by Lisbeth's right elbow. Aubrey bangs the case against the mattock, caked dirt falling over his long fingers. He pulls a small pocket knife from his back pants pocket and runs the knife blade along the lid rim. He bangs the case again on the mattock and blows dirt from it that clouds above Lisbeth's skull face. Gripping the lid firmly, he twists it off, drops it in the dirt and tips the case's contents into his left hand. He holds an amethyst and crystal bead necklace to the sun for less than 10 seconds, then tosses the necklace over his shoulder towards his younger brother, who catches it and lifts it up to the light. Aubrey kneels down over Lisbeth's waist and lifts her hands up as nonchalantly as he might lift a pile of kindling sticks. There's a pure gold band on Lisbeth's left-hand ring finger. He tries to slip it off, but it's set in place by gathered dirt. Molly watches her Uncle Aubrey wrench the ring finger bone back and forth, then rip the finger from its socket. He blows on the finger, spits on the finger, makes a cloth of his shirt and rubs the finger like he's polishing his boots. Then Molly watches her uncle stick the long, dead corpse finger in his mouth, grip the gold band in his teeth like an animal, and pull it off. He drops the finger in the dirt and he spits the gold band into his palm. Then he spits on the ring again and polishes it in his shirt before holding it up to the sun. Even from above ground, Molly and Horace can clearly see the unearthed treasure because there are no earths and no sins and no deaths that can keep the edge of a pure gold band from glowing in the lemon light. Molly observes the way her uncle smiles at it now, his secret smile, the silent affair he has maintained with the glowing. She's studied this bond for some time now. The gravedigger girl has been reading the poetry books on the shelf by the front door of the cemetery house, as her mum told her to do. She's been trying to find bits of her mum inside them, the bits of those books she connected to. All those hardback and dusty books of poems by all those graceful poets like John Keats and Walt Whitman and Edgar Allan Poe and William Butler Yeats and Emily Dickinson, who is Molly's favourite because although she doesn't seem as graceful as the rest, she seems more honest and not afraid to show when she's mad in the heart and in the head. All that those poets seemed to do all day was study people, like her Uncle Aubrey. All those poets seemed to write about were the things you can't see on the outside of people, like Uncle Aubrey. They were always writing about emotions like love and hate and envy and regret and rage, and they were always using real-life creatures like nightingales and crows and horses to represent those emotions. Almost a year ago, Molly Hook started scribbling poems of her own, with chalky rocks on the backs of random headstones throughout Hollow Wood. She recently wrote a poem with no title about the bond her uncle shares with the glowing. She etched the poem into the back of a nameless gravestone, deep in the southwestern corner of Hollow Wood. She used all the creatures she sees in the cemetery to represent things inside her uncle that can't be seen from outside. She wrote it out of anger, like all her best poems. The bird said he dug for the bread. The scorpion said he dug for treasure. The worm said he dug for the dead. The snake said he dug for pleasure. It was a poem about how Molly believed it wasn't the precious metal that her uncle was hoping to find in all these graves. It was the glowing, the brief flash of new light the dug-up gold brought into his world. There was a kind of love in it, she thought. A romance, maybe. Lust, surely. Not the picture theatre kind, but a darker kind that dwells in shadows and never sleeps. The Edgar Allan Poe kind. And she has come to believe, lately, that her uncle would do anything for the glowing because the glowing is breathing and eating and drinking and sleeping and fighting and digging. The glowing is all of life, and he lives only in the briefest moments when the glowing bounces back into his shadowy eyes. It's a private affair, a solitary lust. She's not supposed to know about it. He whips his head to the side and catches Molly staring at him. "Make yourself scarce," he growls. The gravedigger girl and Bert the shovel standing alone and silent before Tom Berry's grave. With the sun in the middle of the sky, Molly reads her grandfather's epitaph. Her eyes are drawn to the same sentence they're always drawn to. Longcoat Bob turned our true hearts to stone. Molly places her right hand against her chest. Molly tries to feel her heartbeat, because a heart can't beat inside stone. And she can feel the weight of her heart inside her chest, and she could swear her heart grows heavier every year. Molly has a book of poetry in her left hand. It's the Dickinson book with the hard and faded blank olive green cover. She has the book open at a poem she likes. It's a poem about the sky and the things that take place above it. Molly looks up at the clear blue sky today. "I worked it out," she says. And the day sky responds to Molly Hook because it's the graceful thing to do. "You did?" "The longer I stand, the shorter I grow," Molly recites. "You worked it out, Molly?" "It's a candle," Molly says. "A candle," the day sky says. "Of course. The longer I stand, the shorter I grow." "He's talking about candlelight," Molly says. "Tom Berry started out from Candlelight Creek." "Candlelight Creek," the day sky says. "Of course. So, what are you going to do now, Molly?" Molly says nothing. Says the knowing day sky. "You're gonna go walkabout again." Molly says nothing. Her father would kill her. No more walkabouts. When she was 9 years and 3 months of age, Molly walked deep into the scrub beyond the edge of Hollowood Cemetery. She walked off with no water, no food, no shoes. She can't even remember now exactly why she walked off like that. So deep into the wild where the grass was so hard it felt like broken glass beneath her feet. She just kept on walking, and she can't recall if the deep country out there was pulling her further in, or if this dark and damned cemetery was pushing her further out. Soon, she was lost in a pathless mess of towering cypress pines. Horace and Aubrey found her almost 2 days later, asleep and breathing slowly beneath the shade of a sand palm. Her uncle said she should have been flogged for walking off like that, but her father did not belt her that day because he was so relieved to find his daughter still alive. He thought he'd lost her, and he held her to his chest as they padded back out of the deep scrub. He held her tighter that day than he'd ever held her, and Molly remembered there was as much daylight in her father then as there was nighttime. When Molly was 11 years and 3 months of age, her father woke before dawn one morning by the edge of the Adelaide River, south of Darwin and north of Katherine, to find the camping swag beside his, Molly's swag, empty. He found her deep in the bush beyond the river 4 hours later, sleeping and breathing slowly in the centre of a low-lying flat cluster of more than 100 termite mounds, some of them 12 feet tall. Violet Hook had once told Molly that termite mounds like that were meridional and miraculous, built instinctively by the white-bodied debris-feeding termites that managed to magnetically align each tall mound in a north-south direction so that the eastern face of each mound is warmed rapidly by the morning sun, and the hottest midday sun hits only the thinnest profile of the termites' strange architecture. Molly saw the mounds as perfectly aligned gravestones, same chalky grey colours, same colour of stone. The cluster was a cemetery, but a cemetery filled with microcosmic life. Molly saw it as Hollowood Cemetery. She saw it as home. Horace belted Molly that day. There and then. He hit her ass so many times and so hard with his open palm that she could not sit back down in the spot where he'd found her. He did not carry her out of the scrub, but left her to walk back to their campsite alone. "No more fucking walkabouts," he said, before disappearing back into the thick bush. No more fucking walkabouts. "Dig, Molly, dig," the day sky says. "Why do you say that? Dad always says that. Uncle Aubrey always says that. Dig, Molly, dig. That's all I ever hear." "Dig, Molly, dig," the day sky says.
Dig for what?
Dig for the answers.
But I don't even know the questions.
Of course you know the questions, Molly. Molly turns her head back to her grandfather's gravestone. She reads more of Tom Berry's last words to the world. I took raw gold from land belonging to the black named Longcoat Bob, and I swear, under God, he put a curse on me and my kin for the sin of my greed. Molly turns her eyes back up to the sky.
Why did she leave me down here?
The day sky says nothing.
How could she leave me like that? How could she leave me here with them?
The day sky says nothing, but Molly waits for an answer. These are questions for the night sky, Molly. Molly shakes her head in disappointment.
I know why she left. It was Longcoat Bob. It was the curse. Kin means daughters. Kin means granddaughters. Kin means mothers. Kin means fathers. She said I was blessed because she wanted to make me feel better. How could I possibly be blessed stuck down here with them?
Molly nods her head, sure of her words.
I know a curse when I see one. I see one every day. A mum would have to be cursed to do what she did.
Dig, Molly, dig, the day sky says.
Have you seen what they've been doing?
Dig, Molly, dig, the day sky says.
Robbing dead folks of their most precious belongings.
Dig, Molly, dig.
She had to be cursed to do what she did, and they must be cursed to do what they do, cursed just like this whole place, cursed and damned and dead.
Dig, Molly, dig.
Dig for what?
The book, Molly. The book. Molly raises the Dickinson in her hand. She opens the book at the page of the poem she likes about the sky.
It's called The Lightning is a Yellow Fork, she says. It's about all the things that are happening up in the sky. She says there's a great big mansion up there, and there's a great big dining table inside the mansion, and there's all these extraordinary people, all these special people, all sitting around the table, and one of those people drops a yellow fork from the table, and that yellow fork drops through the sky as lightning.
Molly stares up at the sky, and 3 blowflies buzz around her face, but she doesn't blink an eye. A yellow fork, Molly, the day sky says. Molly nods.
Yes, I remember seeing those words on Grandpa's pan, but I can't remember what else it said.
Where's the pan, Molly?
Uncle Aubrey threw it away, Molly says.
It wasn't his to throw away.
He said he wrapped it in a rubbish bag with a pig's head and a dozen eggshells.
That pan was a gift for you, Molly.
A sky gift, Molly says.
Sky gifts for the gravedigger girl.
Do you have any more?
More what?
Sky gifts.
Always, Molly.
How will I find them?
Just look up. Molly lies flat on her back in the dirt clearing beside her grandfather's grave. She stares for 10 straight minutes up at the sky, her arms fanned out from her sides. She remembers lying like this with her mother and daughter, flat on their backs, hand in hand. Molly remembers her mother telling her there was a huge milkwood tree in the backyard of the house she grew up in, a sprawling 2-story cyclone-proof family home for 4 on the Darwin waterfront. She said that tree had branches like a tarantula, raising its front legs, and she and her younger brother, Peter, who was a thoughtful and deep boy, just like Molly, would stretch their arms out beneath the shade of the tarantula's legs and look up through those leg cracks to the sky, and they'd pretend the world was upside down and they were actually floating above the milkwood tree, and the tree was sprouting from a ground made of blue sky. It always amazes me how little time people spend looking up at that sky, Violet said. Molly nodded. Maybe it's too beautiful, Violet continued. Maybe nobody looks up at it anymore because they know they'd want to spend the rest of the day looking at it. I guess we'd never get anything done if we spent all day looking up at the sky.
Can something be too beautiful, Mum?
Some things, Moll. Not you. You're just the right amount of it. Then Violet gripped her daughter's hand. Let's float, Molly, she said. Let's float. And she smiled and breathed deeply. Can you feel it, Molly? She asked.
What is it, Mum?
The world is turning upside down. Can you feel it? And Molly saw clouds shifting across the sky. She saw leaves blowing. She saw movement.
I can, Mum. I can feel it.
We're on top now, Molly. Can you feel it? We're floating. We're on top. Molly remembers all of that now, and she smiles. She stands and picks up Bert, who's been leaning against her grandfather's headstone. She pads between the rows of the long dead, through avenues of limestone and dirt, back to the cemetery caretaker's house. The back door to the cemetery house is painted dark green, and Molly turns a loose, rusted bronze doorknob to enter the downstairs laundry space, where she stops immediately before a curled western brown snake, cooling itself on the laundry's concrete floor. Her friend from town, Sam Greenway, and his family have a word for the western brown snake that Molly can't pronounce correctly, but it's a catch-all word meaning, if you come across this deadly snake, you will be well advised to change your course and go the long way around. Molly likes the way Sam's family can say so many things in a single word. Molly doesn't change course. She wants to drink from the laundry sink tap, and brown snakes can't be gathering beneath the house, so she fixes her eyes on the snake's black head, that's resting on the third ring of its own curled brown skin, and drops Bert's cutting blade down on the snake's exposed neck, so hard and fast that a brief spark flies from the concrete floor as the severed snake head is propelled towards the downstairs toilet running off the laundry. The snake's headless body wriggles around Bert's blade face as Molly sweeps it and the black head out the laundry door and into the cemetery yard. Molly rewards her efforts by sticking her open mouth under the laundry tap and letting the town water that tastes like rust and dirt flow down her throat and spill over her chin. Then a voice from the front driveway to the house. Out, damned spot! Out, I say! The words of Shakespeare floating over gravestones, floating over the dead. What need we fear who knows it, when none can call our power to account? The words of a woman, shouting. Yet who would have thought the old man to have so much blood in him? Molly turns the laundry tap off. The tap grips digging hard into her palm until the tap stops dripping, then scurries out the laundry door and along the rotting grey timber slats of the house's left side exterior wall. Uncle Aubrey's rusting red utility truck is parked in the long dirt driveway. Standing on the hulking truck's back tray is a slim, blonde woman in a striking red polka dot dress, her uncle's sometime lady friend, Greta Mays. Truck trays are stages for Greta Mays. Footpaths are stages for Greta Mays. Wet bar tops and soap boxes and bathroom floors and swimming pools are stages for Greta Mays. She stands on the tray with a well-thumbed script in her right hand by her waist, deep into the monologue. The Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is she now? What? Will these hands ne'er be clean? No more of that, my lord, no more of that. You mar with all this starting. That tight, red summer dress with white spots, a fitted waist with cuffs just above the elbows, patch pockets, one for Greta's smokes and matches, another for her hip flask filled with more air than cheap whiskey. The sight of that dress makes Molly smile, and her smile widens further when she spots Greta's brown and white two-tone low-heel canvas saddle shoes, the kind Molly would love to dance in one day when she's older and when she's not digging graves anymore. Greta's wild blonde curls all form a great wave that crashes like a force of nature over her left ear. Round brown sunglasses over her eyes, and perfect porcelain skin that will never be tainted by all the exposure it gets to the soft lights of Darwin's beer halls and gin joints and deep Chinatown basement opium dens. Greta watches Molly approach the truck tray, and her heels spring up an inch. Her voice becomes louder, her performance more heartfelt, for she now has an audience. She smells her own hands, and her character, her latest grand local theatre role, is repulsed by them. Is the smell of the blood still? Oh, the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Oh, oh, oh. Greta squeezes her hands together, urgent, dismayed, crazed. Wash your hands. Put on your nightgown. Look not so pale. She paces back and forth along the truck tray. To bed, to bed. There's knocking at the gate. Greta rushes to the edge of the tray and extends her hand to Molly. Come, give me your hand. Molly reaches her hand up to Greta, and it's thrilling for her to play a small part in this show, this acting, this art, all the way out here in Dead End Hollow Wood. The actress kneels down and grips the gravedigger girl's fingertips, and the touch of those fingers brings comfort to her character. But that comfort is too brief and too late, and Greta stares into Molly's eyes, breathless and distraught, and Greta removes her sunglasses to study Molly's face, unfiltered, and she weeps in front of her, tears welling in her emerald eyes and falling over the clean, cushioned landscape of her cheeks. And Molly wants to cry with her, but she can't, so she simply stares in wide-mouthed wonder. What's done cannot be undone, the actress whimpers. Like all hope is lost for her now, and Molly doesn't even know why, but she wants to change things for this troubled woman. Then Greta stands and turns away from her audience of one and pads slowly to the other side of the truck tray, the back of her stage, and she drops her head and freezes there in the timeless silence that is broken eventually by Molly's rapturous applause. Bravo! Molly hollers. Greta turns around to accept her applause, waving to the imaginary audience up in the cheap seats. She puts her sunglasses back on, nods her head twice in thanks, and takes an elaborate bow. Then she reaches for her hip flask. She raises a toast towards Molly, then takes a triumphant, post-performance guzzle of spirits. She offers the flask to Molly. You fancy a blast?
No, thanks,
Molly says. Greta nods. Smart kid, she says, capping the flask, resting her backside on the tray and leaning her back against the truck's cab. I made a meal of that Thane of Five had a wife line, didn't I? Greta says.
No, not at all, Molly says, certain of it. You were spectacular.
Greta lights a smoke. I was, wasn't I? She smiles, breathing in, then blowing smoke.
What's it from?
Molly asks. The Palmerston players are doing a 2-week run of Macbeth. Greta says. That's Lady Macbeth, sleepwalking through her castle, rambling all of her black confessions.
What's wrong with her?
She's mad as a cut snake, Greta says. Her fella's even worse.
What's wrong with him?
He keeps hearing strange voices in his head, keeps seeing things that aren't really there. Molly dwells on this.
I think I hear voices in my head, she says.
Greta nods. Of course you do. You're mad as a box of frogs. She winks. That's why I like you. Nuts like you and me should always mix together. Molly beams a smile.
I talk to the sky sometimes, she confesses.
Greta smiles immediately. Who doesn't?
You talk to the sky, Greta?
Sure.
Does it ever talk back to you?
Sure. Greta shrugs.
What's it sound like when it talks back to you?
My sky sounds like Humphrey Bogart. Molly laughs. What's it sound like to you? Greta says. Molly looks up at the sky as she ponders this, turns back to Greta.
I can't make it out, Molly says. It sounds a bit like me, but me if I was a lot older.
Greta nods.
You think it's really the sky talking to me?
Molly asks. If you're hearing it, then I guess it's talking to you, Greta says.
I sometimes see things out bush that aren't really there,
Molly says, proudly now.
How wonderful, Greta says. Like what?
Like the other week, we were way up Rapid Creek and I thought I saw Medusa.
Medusa? Greta echoes. Like scary Greek monster Medusa.
Like in Mum's bookshelf up there,
Molly says. Greta knows the shelf. She's run her fingers along the spines of the dusty old black and brown and olive green and blue hardbacks that Violet Hook bought mostly from the Collins bookshop on Nucky Street, using spare grocery money collected over many weeks. Greta's run her eyes over those titles and admired the woman's taste. Wished she had more time to read, as much as Violet must have read. Collections of poetry, mostly. Irish poets and English and American poets. The Song of Brotherhood by the Australian poet John Le Gay Brereton. She's fond of Victor Daly and his Sydney poems. She's opened his book, Wine and Roses, and she's smiled at The Woman at the Washtub. Pictured that poem as her own sad life summary, and even her epitaph, should her greatest fear come true. To live the rest of her days with Aubrey Hook, trapped forevermore inside the small, hot kitchen of the small, hot, two-bedroom corrugated iron shell of a house he rents in Darwin Town, and on one sorry, inevitable day be buried in the hard dirt of this God-forsaken cemetery. Here lies Greta Mays. She was born for the stage. She died doing the dishes. The woman at the washtub. She works till fall of night, with soap and suds and soda her hands are wrinkled white. Her diamonds are the sparkles the copper fire supplies. Her opals are the bubbles that from the suds arise.
Mum had a book on Greek mythology there, Molly continues, and I'd been reading about Medusa and how she turned all them blokes to stone just because they looked at her, and then I'm walking through the mangroves of Rapid Creek and I swear I see Medusa standing in the middle of the scrub up ahead. And she's got all her snakes wriggling from her head, and I shoot my head down straight away because I don't want to be turned to stone, but eventually I look up because I can't resist, you know.
Well, of course you can't, Greta says.
And I look up at her and...
Molly says, excited by the telling.
And did you turn to stone? Greta asks.
Molly shakes her head, almost disappointed.
No, because it wasn't Medusa. It was half a trunk from a dead ironwood tree with a shabby hawk's nest sticking out the top.
Greta drags on her smoke, shakes her head. And here I was thinking it was going to be a Greek monster out in that Darwin scrub. Molly shrugs, moves quickly on because she can move quickly on from anything. Beltings, burns, bereavement, burials, blood.
What's the spot on the lady's hands?
Molly asks. It's blood, Greta says. But it's not really blood, it's guilt. Her and her fella, Macbeth, have done terrible things to get where they've got to, and they're cursed by the past.
Cursed?
Molly echoes. Yeah, cursed, kid, Greta says. The stains of the past. Old Lady Macbeth, she can't wash those stains away. Greta drags on her smoke, exhales. You ever had any stains you couldn't wash away, Molly?
Just cut the head off a brown snake in the laundry, she says. A bit of blood got on the concrete, but I'll just wash that away with some water. Maybe some metho if it don't come out.
Greta smiles. Guess Lady Macbeth could have used a splash of methylated spirits. Another drag on her cigarette. Greta studying her script.
How do you cry like that?
Molly asks. What do you mean?
How does an actress just cry any time she wants to?
That doesn't just happen any time I want it to happen, Greta says. I've got to build up to it. I've got to earn it. I've got to bleed for it, Molly Hook. Greta points a finger to her temple. I'm saying those lines up here, she says.
then places a hand on her chest. But I'm feeling those lines in here. And all the time I'm feeling those lines, I'm also feeling things I've felt before in my life. That's what you gotta do to be true, Molly. You gotta go down deep inside your heart and soul, and you gotta find that dark and scary and fragile place you've been to before. You know what I mean? We all have a place like that. Molly smiles.
I wish I could do what you can do.
Greta shifts the way she's sitting, slides her backside along the tray, leans over the tray edge, taking another puff on her smoke. Close your eyes, she says. Molly closes her eyes. Now keep those peepers shut and go to your place, Molly, Greta says.
What if I don't like my place? Molly asks. Why would anyone want to go to the place that makes them sad?
Because sadness is the truest emotion, Greta says. Happiness isn't to be trusted. It's a bald-faced liar. But the truth of your sadness enriches every other thing inside you, especially your joy. You shouldn't be afraid to go to the place that makes you sad, Molly Hook. The more you go to that dark place inside you, the lighter it gets. You go there enough times, you realize that dark place is actually your sacred place. That place is all of you, and the tears you take from that place are just the darkness leaking out. Precious drop by precious drop. You following me?
No,
Molly says. Keep your eyes closed for 60 seconds, Greta says. Molly closes her eyes. You're standing in darkness, Greta says. 10 seconds. You don't realize it, but you're actually standing inside a large stone cave in total darkness. 20 seconds. Greta studies the girl's face. So trusting. So ready for the experience. So ready to embrace the unknown. She sees parts of herself at 12. She can't help but smile at the girl because she knows her past and she worries about her future. But the poor little gravedigger girl, mad as a box of frogs, seems to worry about nothing. Then you see a line of fire draw a door on a wall of that cave. Greta says, up, across, down again and back across. 30 seconds. Then a circle of fire that is a doorknob, and you can touch this fire because it's cool. And your hand reaches out to that doorknob, and you can turn that doorknob, and that door opens outward, and you walk into your sacred place. And you see it so close and real that you could reach out and touch the memory of it. And then, in her mind, in this strange and long minute, Molly Hook stands in the dark before an open door, and she knows that door is the one to her bedroom, just up there in the cemetery house. She hears something beyond the open bedroom door. A thumping sound. 40 seconds. Do you see it, Molly? Greta asks from the truck tray. Do you feel it? Molly's eyes still closed. Thump. Thump. Something banging against a wall in the bedroom down the hall. Mum and Dad's bedroom. Violet and Horace's bedroom. Molly rubs her eyes and walks slowly down the hall, her open palms brushing against the hallway walls, walking blind but following the sound of the thumping. Thump. Thump. And she hears something else now. It's the sound of something animal. The sound of the wolf. Small steps along the hallway, and she sees a light to her right and turns to look into the kitchen off the hall. An empty table and a half-drunk bottle of whiskey. Thump. Thump. In front of her is the closed bedroom door at the end of the hall, and she reaches her hand out to the doorknob, and she realizes the door isn't fully closed, and she can push it open with the gentlest tap of her left hand. And what she sees in that bedroom is a full moon through the bedroom window, and the silver light of that floating night sky orb falling on the face of her mother, Violet Hook, lying on her back in her bed, her nightclothes torn from her shoulders. The high,
dark brown wooden bedhead banging against the wall. Thump, 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 thump. And there is something animal atop Molly's mother. A thing cloaked in shadow, crawling and turning like a wolf. And in the moonlight, she can see only the creature's hairy arms and claws, its long fingers digging into her mother's ribs. And the moonlit face of Violet Hook turns from the window to the bedroom door, and it finds Molly Hook, because that face has always found Molly Hook. And Violet Hook begins to weep silently in the moonlight. But the weeping doesn't stop the bedhead from banging the wall, and the weeping doesn't stop the animal from crawling across her. Then a voice from the kitchen, and that voice makes no sense to her. "Molly!" And the girl turns back to the kitchen light to find her father, Horace, sitting at the kitchen table, his right hand gripping the whiskey bottle. Then Molly can't help but turn back towards the moonlight in the bedroom to find the face of the animal that's now raised its head from the shadow, the face of the wolf. Another 5 seconds. "Now, open your eyes," Greta says. Molly opens her eyes. "What did you see when you opened the door?" Greta asks.
Nothing, Molly says. I only saw black.
"Nothing?" Greta asks, resting her back once more on the tray's rear wall. "You don't have a single memory that makes you feel sad?" Molly shakes her head.
I don't think I can feel sad. I don't think I'm even able to cry.
"That's ridiculous," Greta says. "All kids cry. I cried enough tears as a kid to fill Sydney Harbour."
I haven't cried since I was 7, Molly says.
Greta's face goes blank. She knows what happened to the girl at 7.
I try sometimes, Molly says. I stare into a mirror and I think of everything that ever happened to me that should make me cry, but those things never make me cry.
What do they make you feel?
They make me feel like running.
Greta studies the girl's face, fascinated. She shakes her head at Molly. "Well, I guess you're lucky, kid," she says, returning her eyes to her script. "Every bastard out there wants to make us girls cry. No such pleasure from our young Molly Hook."
My heart is turning,
Molly says, softly. Greta doesn't hear. "What's that?" she asks.
Nothing,
Molly says. She pauses for a moment.
Greta?
"Yeah, kid."
What do you see when you open the door?
Greta turns her face to Molly, weighs up her company, smiles. She comes close to saying something true. She comes close to saying that there is a white room beyond her open door. She comes close to saying that there is a newborn baby girl in that room, and that girl is in her arms. But then she closes the door, slams it shut in her mind. "Nah, sorry, hun," she says. "Can't give away all my acting secrets." She looks at the sun, looks at the sky. Shift the gaze, change the subject. "Those boys nearly done?" she asks.
Almost.
"They make me sick," Greta says.
It's not them.
"It's not?"
No, Molly says. It's the curse.
"Oh, of course. I forgot," Greta says. "The great curse of Longcoat Bob's lost gold. You still getting worked up by all that bush hocus-pocus, Molly Hook?"
Don't you wonder about all the bad things that have happened to my family?
Molly asks. "Hate to break it to you, Molly, but bad things sometimes happen around bad people. That's a fact of life. Got nothing to do with blackfella magic."
You think I'm a bad person?
"No, Moll," Greta says. "You're not bad. You're not bad at all." Greta lies back on the tray now and raises her knees as though sunbaking. "That gold wasn't cursed, kid," she says.
If I knew where that gold was today, I'd be grabbing your mate Bert there and I'd be digging for my fortune, safe in the knowledge there are no kinds of magic in this world, black or otherwise. There's only people, Molly. There are good ones and there are bad ones. And then there's all of us nuts stuck in the middle.
Greta's eyes studied the script she holds up now to block the full sun from her face. She hasn't noticed, but Molly has, that her summer dress has fallen between her legs, and bruising, scarlet and violet and blue bruising, can be seen on her inner thighs. Finger-shaped bruises. Stains on the skin that won't wash out.
Do you love Uncle Aubrey?
Molly asks. Greta takes another shot from the flask, winces on the burn of the spirits. Yeah, I love him, she says, but I hate him too.
He's a bad one,
Molly says, matter-of-factly. Greta pockets the flask, looks at Molly's face, expressionless. With the toe of her right boot, Molly traces a circle, a moon, in the gravel driveway beneath her.
How do you love someone and hate them at the same time?
She asks. You'll understand when you find a man of your own.
What if I already have found a man of my own?
Greta turns to Molly, beams a smile. Good for you, gravedigger girl. He handsome, this boy.
Very much so,
Molly says, certain of it.
He looks like Tyrone Power, except if only Tyrone Power was a black fella from out past Mataranka.
And what might this boy's name be?
His name's Sam, and he's not a boy. He's a man. He's 16 and he's got a job shooting buffalo with Johnston Traders. He makes good money.
Then why are you still here in this shithole cemetery? Why don't you run away with Sam, the 16-year-old man who makes good money?
Dad would never let me leave.
Who said you have to ask for his permission? Molly's never thought of it that way. Maybe she could just leave. She turns to the front gate of the cemetery house. It's open. It's only 30 or so yards to the front gate. Maybe 5 more miles into town. Maybe 3,000 more miles to Brisbane, Queensland. Maybe 10,000 more miles to Hollywood, California. Molly grips the side of the tray, swings her body back and forth, bending her knees as she does.
Why are you still here? Molly asks.
Huh? Greta says.
You should be on stage in London, Molly says. You should be starring in films in Hollywood. Then I could see your name in lights at the Star. Humphrey Bogart, Vivian Leigh, and introducing the toast of Darwin, Australia, Greta Mays!
Greta smiles. Full lips, a top lip that curls when it feels like it. She likes the thought of those lights. Can't, she says. Got too much on my plate right here. Molly's still looking at Greta's thighs, but not just the bruising now. It's the shape of her legs, her femininity, the silver screen in them.
Greta?
Yeah, kid.
Is it true that Mays is an Iriel last name?
It's true.
What's your real name?
Baumgarten. Greta Waltrand Baumgarten.
Why'd you change your name?
Nobody wants to see a kraut name like that up in lights beside John Wayne. I like Mays, Molly says. Greta smiles.
It makes you seem mysterious, like it's hard to work you out. There are twists and turns all through you.
Greta nods. You can find your way into Greta Mays, but you may never find your way back out, she says. Molly smiles. She pictures Greta in silver screen black and white, that perfect face in black and white, emerging from a cloud of Humphrey Bogart's cigarette smoke. Bogey and Baumgarten. Bogey and Mays. Those porcelain pins in black and white. The bruising wouldn't look so harsh in black and white. And the big film studios have makeup artists to cover up that sort of thing. Dottie Drake from the Fanny Bay hair salon told Molly all about the makeup artists in Hollywood. How they could cover up anything,
from the bags under Joan Crawford's eyes to Errol Flynn's split lip.
"Do you think I could ever change my name?"
Molly asks. Of course you could. Anyone can. What's your new name gonna be? Molly thinks for a long moment, tilts her head upwards.
"Sky,"
she says. Greta looks up too. I like that, Greta says. You could jazz up that first name, though. She thinks for a moment. Give it a splash of Dietrich, she says. Molly beams, gasps the name, whispers it like it's sacred.
"Marlene Sky."
Greta nods, eyes still up in the sky. Well, would you look at that, she says.
"What?"
asks Molly. Up there. It's your name in lights. Molly laughs, and they both stare into the sky for a moment. The sky that's so far away from their dark caves and their silly fire-traced doors leading to dark places. Molly looks again at Greta's bruises.
"Greta,"
Molly begins. Yeah, kid.
"I heard my dad talking about you to his limestone supplier,"
Molly says. Greta turns to Molly, follows her eyes to the leg bruising. She sits up self-consciously, pulls the dress back over her knees. And what did your father say about me?
"He said you take your clothes off for money in the Edinburgh Arms pub."
Greta sucks on another cigarette, pulls her sunglasses down over her nose. Did anyone ever tell you that you talk too much, Molly Hook? Yeah.
"Everyone,"
Molly says. I trust your father then told that shocked limestone salesman how those nights I take my clothes off might represent my finest role of all.
"He didn't say anything about any role you were playing."
Of course it's a role I'm playing, Greta says. I'm playing Greta Mays, a 33-year-old actress with too much talent and not enough opportunity, who stayed in the arse end of the earth because she thought she loved an older man. Greta closes the script, tucks it under her arm, and swings her legs over the side of the truck tray, the rubber soles of her laced saddle shoes leaving imprints in the dirt driveway where she lands. And what role are you playing today, Molly? Greta asks. Or are you still working on that 12-year-old gravedigger girl who has convinced herself she's not being raised by monsters? Red tin thimble. Tapping metal typewriter keys echoing through a house of timber and tin and old wooden stumps. Peeled paint on the walls inside. A hole in the living room wall above a broken and dusty pneumatic pianola, where Molly once watched her Uncle Aubrey drive his younger brother's bloodied head during a mindless and lengthy drinking binge that ended with the brothers shooting nips of paint thinner.
"And have you thought about the inscription on the headstone?"
Molly Hook asks across an old wooden table, her busy 12-year-old fingers already wiggling above the keys. R, I, and P. Mouldy air and sunlight pushing through a faded curtain in the living room where the business is conducted. The Hook family business of burying the dead. When Horace Hook's in a light mood, Molly sometimes suggests to her father that this cemetery keeper's house feels like a kind of tomb in itself, as dark and dead as the 894, and always counting, tombs that surround it. She suggests more windows. She suggests more cleaning. She suggests more food to eat, fewer maggots in the sink, fewer bloodstains on the kitchen walls, fewer unwashed forks and dinner plates caked in old gravy, fewer weevils in the oats in the pantry, fewer silverfish crawling through Emily Dickinson and William Butler Yeats and Walt Whitman on Violet's bookshelf by the front door. Fewer empty whiskey bottles filling the space beneath the kitchen sink. Fewer strips of fly paper hanging from the ceiling, turned black with the stuck dead wings, heads, and legs of houseflies. In the 2 chairs across from Molly's typewriter sit 2 grieving customers, 68-year-old Mildred Holland and her 27-year-old son, Clem Holland. Mildred wears a black cardigan and tightly grips a purse with both hands on her thighs. Her wide-eyed and round-faced son wears white overalls covered in flour. He's come straight from work, the same bakery on Herbert Street where his father, Lloyd Holland, died instantly of heart failure at dawn 4 days ago. Clem found his father lying amid 12 freshly baked loaves of bread that were sold for half price that same afternoon. Mildred places her reading glasses on her nose, pulls a rolled piece of paper from her purse, unrolls it and reads from it.
"We wish to have the following words written on the gravestone," she says.
She studies the paper and reads the words out loud slowly.
"Rest in peace, Lloyd."
Molly taps these words out on the typewriter.
"Good. And what should we write next?"
She then asks. Mildred is puzzled.
"That's all we could think of to say,"
she says. Clem shrugs his shoulders. Pretty well says it all, don't you think? Molly nods.
"Would you consider a couple more lines, perhaps that say something more about the full life he enjoyed before he passed away?"
Molly suggests. He didn't really enjoy much at all, Clem says.
"Something about how he cherished his family and friends, perhaps, and how he was cherished in return."
Molly tries again. Mildred looks at her son grimly, looks back at Molly.
"He was mean and sour most of the time," Mildred says.
Clem turns to his mother. When I told people the news, everybody seemed to have the same look on their face.
"What look was that?"
asks Mildred. Relief, Clem says.
"I see."
Molly nods understandingly.
"If Lloyd had one belief, Mrs. Holland, one value that he really lived by, what would you say it was?"
Mildred shrugs.
"He believed in bread," she says. "He believed there was something beautiful in creating something that tasted so good out of just, flour and,
Mildred looks to her son. Clem nods knowingly. Water, he adds. Just flour and water.
"Flour and water,"
Mildred repeats, nodding. I see, Molly says. Mildred looks around the house. She looks at the closed bedroom doors beyond the hall off the living room.
"Where did you say your father was again?"
Mildred asks.
"He's fallen ill,"
Molly says. Clem smiles. Got the brown bottle flu, has he? Molly gives a half smile.
"Mrs. Holland, if you had any thoughts about anything that interested him, then I could perhaps help you craft something that might be a more fitting tribute to your late husband."
Molly turns to Clem.
"Something his children's children might appreciate half a century from now."
Molly looks back at Mildred.
"I know I'm only young, but I've helped many people find the words that are just right for their departed loved one." "How old are you anyway?" Mildred asks. "I'm 13 in a month."
Mildred studies Molly's face, dismayed by the idea of having to think more deeply about her husband. She ponders. She looks at her son, pats a cloud of flour from his shoulder. She shakes her head.
"I guess the only thing that made him happy was a loaf of well-baked bread in the morning."
Molly nods, swinging the typewriter's carriage return lever over to start a new line of text. She looks out the only window in the living room, where a slice of blue sky fills half the frame.
"What about this?" she asks,
and she speaks the words as she types them.
"Like a falling sun," she types. "You closed your eyes."
Tap, 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 carriage return lever, new line of text.
"Like morning bread, may your spirit rise."
Molly looks up at her customers.
"Rest in peace, Lloyd," she says.
And Mildred turns to her son, and Clem's eyebrows rise in approval. Mildred beams.
Well, I quite like that,
she says. She thinks on it some more.
Like morning bread. Yes. I think Lloyd would like that too. Yes, let's go with that, shall we? Of course, I need to tell you, Mrs. Holland, Molly offers. 2 more lines of engraving on the stone will cost you an additional 4 shillings, but I find customers don't usually mind paying a little extra when it comes to honouring the departed.
Mildred turns to her son, Clem. He shrugs, unsure.
It's only 2 more lines, Mildred says,
loosening the grip on her purse. This is the end of CD 2. The book continues on CD 3. CD 3. A red tin thimble in the centre of the small wooden kitchen table where Molly and her father have breakfast. Horace sweats. He is thin, all limbs and burden. His hair is combed back hard and straight. He stinks of methylated spirits. Alcohol leaching from his armpits in his breath. Beads of sweat above his top lip. Molly places a white enamel mug of black tea on the table. Her father picks it up with his right hand, which shakes when he lifts the mug to his lips. "What day is it?" Horace asks.
Thursday,
Molly says.
You drank through Monday and Tuesday. Slept through Wednesday.
Did I leave you be? Molly nods.
I stayed in my room and read,
she says. Horace nods now, relieved. What are you reading?
The complete works of William Shakespeare.
Horace nods.
I think I want to be an actress like Greta,
Molly says. I thought you were going to be a famous poet like Emily Dickens.
Dickinson, Dad,
Molly says.
And I'm going to be a famous actress-poet named Marlene Skye.
Horace nods again, not at all surprised by his daughter's announcement. You make more money digging graves, he says, but I guess you won't get no standing ovation for hiding the dead. He lifts and looks at his shaking left hand, turns it into a fist.
What's that stuff you and Uncle Aubrey have been drinking?
Molly asks. Mind your own business.
You're becoming more and more like him, Dad, Molly says.
Like who?
Like Uncle Aubrey.
Another shaky sip of tea.
You look like a shadow, Molly says. Uncle Aubrey is nothing but shadow. You're shadow too, Dad. But you're light as well.
Horace says nothing.
When are you going to stand up to him?
Molly asks.
He doesn't care about us, Dad. He doesn't care about Greta. He only cares for the gold. The only thing that makes him feel anything is the way that gold glows. I see it, Dad. He's gold sick. He's always been gold sick. He's always talking about my grandfather and how gold sick he got, but I reckon Aubrey's as sick right now as a man can be.
Horace rubs his temples with his fingers, trying to ease the blows of the dropping hammer in his head.
He thinks that glowing will chase away the shadow,
Molly says, her train of thought burning with new coal now.
But it won't. It's already too dark.
Horace rubs his forehead, closes his eyes. There's no telling where a memory will come from. No figuring where and when the sleeping librarian of Horace Hook's memory room is likely to wake with a start and dig into the dusty drawers of lived experience and produce a folder filled with a past-coloured story. Aubrey Hook and Horace Hook throwing rocks at each other's faces. Horace is 12 and his brother is 13. They're pickaxing the face of a gold mine near Tom's Gully along Mount Bundy Creek, far south of Darwin. Their father, Arthur Hook, a seasoned gold prospector, has ridden on horseback to Pine Creek on a supply run.
No information in the library on what started it all, only how it ended. Aubrey lands a rock the size of a tennis ball on Horace's right eye. Horace responds with a similar-sized rock that Aubrey does not duck or turn away from, but willingly allows to land flush on his mouth, where it dislodges one of his 2 front teeth. Aubrey searches the dirt floor of the gold mine dug out and grips another rock the size of his metal water canister and throws it at his younger brother, who ducks swiftly out of the way of the deadly projectile. The thrown rock bounces against the chalky mine wall and falls beside Horace's work boots. He picks it up and snap throws it back. Once more, Aubrey does not duck or turn away or guard his face with his hands. He stands proudly and lets the rock hit his face so hard that it breaks his nose. Blood runs across his chin and down his work shirt, and Aubrey Hook smiles. Red across his teeth, a mouth full of blood. Something in the smile makes Horace turn cold. Something across his brother's face, other than blood and rock dust. It's satisfaction.
"Why do you need permission from Aubrey to let me go to the Star with Sam?"
Molly asks. "Be quiet now, Molly," Horace says.
"I've been watching you both," Molly says. "There's something strange about you two. I think that moonshine is sending you both mad. I think you should stop drinking for a bit."
Horace raises his eyebrows. "Tom Berry's grandkid telling me about madness," he says. "I like that."
"Maybe you've got the curse too," Molly says.
"Be quiet now, Molly." The girl is silent for a long moment, but then Molly breaks the silence. Molly always breaks the silence.
"I was thinking about Mum the other day," she says softly.
Horace reacts to that word, Mum. He turns his head like he turns his head in pubs when anyone says the name Violet, or the word wife.
"I was looking in the mirror of her dishes," Molly continues, "and I was missing her so much. I felt so sad about it. But I couldn't cry. I tried so hard to let some tears out for her because sometimes I feel like maybe she's somewhere where she can see me, but I can't see her, and if she can see me, then I want her to see that I'm crying for her, and that she'll know how much I miss her and how much I hate her for leaving us down here. But then I remembered Longcoat Bob, and I knew what was happening."
"What was happening?" Horace asks.
"The turning," Molly says. "The heart doesn't turn to stone right away. It takes time to take hold because the heart is warm and it keeps beating and it keeps fighting against all that cold stone, but soon enough it all turns and then you feel nothing. All you got inside is cold rock, like Uncle Aubrey."
Horace stares at his daughter and he realises how deeply she's lost in a trance of her own thinking. He worries for her. He cares for her. Molly looks at her father.
"And you're turning too, Dad,"
Molly says. "That's enough now, Molly," Horace says.
"I can tell, Dad. I can see it happening to you. Kin means husbands, Dad."
"Let's just have some breakfast."
"Kin means brothers, Dad. It means uncles and aunties and cousins, everything."
And Horace slams his fist on the kitchen table. "Keep going, Molly," he barks. His eyes, that horrifying warning men like Horace give to children like Molly with their eyes, in kitchens like this one. Danger. Do anything but keep going. So Molly picks up a cutting knife and runs it 6 times, both sides, along the black leather razor strop hanging from a nail by the gas stove. She cuts 3 neat slices from a warm slab of 6-day-old corned beef and fries them beside 2 halves of a ripe tomato in a thick, black square iron skillet on the stovetop. Horace sips the tea quietly, sits the mug down on the table. His fingers reach for the red tin thimble in the centre of the table. "You see this thimble?" he asks. Molly nods at it, turning the tomatoes on the pan. "This thimble belonged to your mother," Horace says, "in the good years. When she was clear-headed, I mean. She would sit in the corner over there and sewing clothes for you. Pinafores and all that. And I'd be where you are right there. I'd fry up a feed of red emperor I'd caught on the rocks at Francis Bay, and I'd fry up some potatoes with it, and we'd boil some muddies too. And she was happy." Horace slips his forefinger into the thimble. Molly plates the corned beef and fried tomato, places the breakfast down for her father. He cuts into the beef, chews it along with the tomato that he's sprinkled with too much salt and pepper. He rests back in his chair. "The Japs are coming," he says.
"Who's coming?"
"The Japanese. 350 Jap aircraft just blew the arse out of Hawaii. They'll be coming for us next. These idiots who run this town will take a while to wake up and smell the fiery death fleet heading our way. But you can take it from me, Mo. The war's coming to Darwin." He sips his tea. "I reckon there's some high-up Jap right now sticking a big fat red sun marker over Darwin on his map."
"Why would they want to come all the way here?"
"They're rat-fucking the Yanks and we're helping the Yanks. You've seen all them Navy boats in Darwin Harbour. We've got giant fuel tanks filling Allied ships. We've got oil tanks in army bases and aerodromes. And all we got protecting 'em is a few big guns and a couple of barefoot kids with slingshots. Why wouldn't they come to Darwin?" "So,
"When do we leave?"
Molly asks. Horace places his cup down again on the table. "We're not going anywhere," he replies. "Our ship is about to come in, Molly. War is a gold mine for the gravedigger. Those Japs are coming, and anyone stupid enough to stick around to greet them will be dead within a day."
"Including us,"
Molly says. "We're not in the firing line. They'll go for the town and the port mostly. And when the dust settles, the Federal War Cabinet will be more than grateful to pay up handsomely to anyone who can give all them sorry bodies a proper burial." Horace gets up from the table, ambles into the living room. He returns with a large wooden box filled with bottles of disinfectant and sugar soap and scrubbing brushes. He places the box in the centre of the kitchen. "It's the curse," Molly tells herself. "It's the curse that's made him hard. Kin means fathers. Kin means husbands too. Longcoat Bob turned his good heart to stone." "I need this place cleaned," Horace says. "I need you to dust, wash, and disinfect every last corner, every last crack in this godforsaken shithole." Horace picks up the red tin thimble, holds it up to Molly. "I'm going into town, and I won't be home until tonight," he says. "Before I leave, I'll be hiding this thimble somewhere in the house. To find it, you will need to inspect and clean every nook and cranny. If you have not found the thimble by the time I return, I will know you have not cleaned the house properly, and you will be punished. Do you understand?" Molly nods. "It's the curse," she tells herself again. "The curse of Longcoat Bob." "Say it," he says.
"I understand,"
Molly says. "You understand who?" her father asks, placing the red tin thimble in the pocket of his pants.
"I understand you, Dad."
And her mind rattles with two words. The turning, the turning, the turning. Cupboard doors opening. Cupboard doors slamming shut. Wipe, scrape, rub, dust. Breathless gravedigger girl on her hands and knees with an old toothbrush, scrubbing bloodstains off the hallway floor.
"Out, damn spot,"
says Lady Macbeth in her mind.
"Out, out, I say."
But some spots can't be removed. The girl spreading wax on the floor and rubbing and polishing the old wood. Her kneecaps get so red and sore, she ties her father's thick winter socks around her knees to cushion them. She pulls a heavy bucket of water and disinfectant across the living room floor, a cotton mop and a wringer. It must be here. It must be here.
She runs a rag across the dust that blankets the skirting boards of every wall. Breathe. She pulls a wooden step behind her through the house so that she can reach her wire-bone arms up to run the rag across the endless crowning moulds atop every internal wall. Breathe, Molly Hook. Every wardrobe door, every corner of every duchesse, every sideboard, every broom closet. Please be here. Floors scrubbed, curtains washed. Dig, Molly, dig. It must be here somewhere. Lye dropped down the pipes in the kitchen sink. The kitchen sink and the bathroom washtub scrubbed with a wire brush and scouring powder. She drags 3 large house rugs down the back staircase and uses the wooden step to help her hang the rugs on the backyard clothesline. She beats the rugs with the rear blade face of Bert the shovel. Coughs hard when she swallows decades-old dust. For 5 straight hours she works. She works through lunch with no break and no food. There isn't even time to stop for a cup of water. She must find the thimble because she feels the curse. Knobs turning, doors opening, cupboards slamming shut, and now she's opening cupboard doors she's opened thrice before, and now she's dizzy and so tired, and she can't keep a single straight thought inside her busy mind. Drawers pulled open frantically and frantically pushed shut. Red tin thimble, red tin thimble. So small, nothing to it really, just an object that once belonged to her mother, Violet. It means nothing to her, and everything to her. She searches and searches through the sprawling house, inside cracks and under mats, hands reaching beneath crockery cabinets and finding only the bodies of living and dead spiders. So many cockroaches crawling and so much cockroach shit to pick up in her hands. But she finds no red tin thimble. The gravedigger girl's heart pounding because she can never seem to find exactly what she's looking for. And the curse of Longcoat Bob blows in from the graveyard to mix with the smell of ammonia and bleach, and she wonders if it's the ammonia in the bathroom or the methylated spirits in the kitchen or the missing red tin thimble that is making her feel lightheaded. Her father will come home. He will come home, because fathers always come home. Sure as the Darwin sun rises each day like the bread in the late Lloyd Holland's bakery. He will come home, and she will not have found the thimble, and she will be punished, and he will not even know the effort she put into finding her mother's red tin thimble. He will not know because he won't be able to see the truth beyond the dark veil of Longcoat Bob's curse that she can feel is so close to her now, and so close to her father because of her, so close it hurts. Her Uncle Aubrey will be with her father when he comes home, and they will both be liquored, and Uncle Aubrey will be worse than her father because he is all shadow, and he will take on the punishing like he always does because it satisfies him. She scurries from the bedrooms to the kitchen to the bathroom to the living room to the bedrooms to the kitchen to the bathroom, and she spins around on the spot, wondering where her father could have possibly placed that red tin thimble. And she finds the locked door to Horace Hook's bedroom, where he keeps the buried and unburied treasures of Hollowwood's ever-trusting dead. And her heart is beating so fast with all the thinking and the work and exhaustion that she can't catch her breath. And she tries to suck more air into her lungs, but nothing goes in. And she remembers water, and she scrambles to the kitchen. But then she sees flashes of yellow and purple in her mind's eye, and she can't focus on anything, and her hands are so cold, and the blood seems to rush out of her body and drain like lye into the cracks in the polished wooden floorboards beneath her bare feet. And she closes her eyes and sees only a black room, and this feels safe, so she stops breathing and falls with a thud to the floor of the kitchen of the caretaker's quarters in ruined Hollowwood Cemetery, where the only people close enough to hear a single sound from Molly Hook, aged 12 years and 11 months, are buried in dirt. And the last thing she sees in the black room of her mind is an audience rising to its feet to give a soaring standing ovation for the gravedigger girl, as the side of her skull hits the theatre stage.
"Bravo, Molly!" they scream. "Bravo!"
Seen from the blue sky above, and looking down, and looking closer in and closer in, she is a brown-haired girl standing in pants made for boys before a dress shop window on Kavanagh Street, central Darwin. If someone told Molly Hook she had dreamed herself here in this moment, she would believe it, because Darwin is a dream at sunset, in summer, and the dress in the window is the kind of dress Molly wears in her dreams. A teenager's dress and a going-out dress that Molly could wear to a dance, or a school graduation, or to a Hollywood film premiere on the arm of Gary Cooper. If only she wasn't so busy digging graves in Darwin, Australia. A light blue satin dress, the colour of the Darwin sky in summer, resting on the Ward's boutique shop window mannequin, whose expressionless face says nothing of how wonderful it must be to wear something so beautiful. It's not long till her birthday. She will soon be able to say she is in her teens. She will soon be old enough to attend the winter dance in Darwin's town hall. She could wear this blue dress to the dance. Perhaps her father will buy it for her birthday. She won't ask how he got the money. She won't ask if it was bought with the gold her uncle bit free from Lisbeth Fleming's dead ring finger. She will wake up on the morning of her birthday and she will open the dress box her father has wrapped for her and she will whisper, "It's beautiful, Dad." And he will ask her to try the dress on. And she will spin before him and he will smile and she will run into his arms and he will say he's sorry he can't always be like this. And when they embrace, his face won't be unshaven and bristly. He won't smell of spirit and week-old sweat. There will be only colour. Sky blue. Molly's made her pilgrimage to this untouchable dress twice a week for the past 4 weeks. But no matter how many times she wills a different outcome, her pockets are empty when she gets there, and she always turns away empty-handed. She walks barefoot. She dreams, and Darwin dreams with her. It refuses to wake up, so the strange daily film reel dream of the town on the geographical top of Australia during World War II unspools in all its scenes that make no sense. Darwin, which was not made by God, but by a theory of evolution. Made by the earth spinning and by 5,800 people who lost their footing. Slid southwards and northwards on the rocking floors of ships with no anchors, and found the wreckage and flotsam of their lives washed ashore at Port Darwin. Greek and Italian store owners, Chinese market sellers, Japanese divers, Filipino fishermen, German miners, Afghan cameleers, Thai whores, Malay traders, Javanese labourers, New Guinea labourers, South Sea Island labourers press-ganged onto boats and forced to work inside the Darwin dream. A dream that starts in the Timor Sea on a sheet of turquoise coastal water so clear you feel you could dance on its hard glass. A girl like Molly Hook could make slippers out of that sea glass, and she could wear them to a Country Women's Association ball with a sky-blue satin shop window dress. Those mangroves on the shore would be no place to dance. The mangroves belong to the bodies of root-wedged dead gangsters and the crocodiles who feast on their sins. But inside that mangrove fringe is a place where humans come to reinvent themselves. A place to change your dream, to change your name, to change your ending. Baumgarten to Maze, Molly to Marlene. Nobody knows anything and everybody keeps it that way. Don't trouble the man in the black hat 3 stools down along the blood-stained bar of the National Hotel. He's the devil on a day off. The Darwin sunset is gold, then red, then purple, then black. The town is corrugated iron fortress homes that fall with a sneeze. Dirt for roads and dirt for air. Cyclone ravaged for a century. Architectural impermanence. Darwin dreams in sun golds and earth browns. It dreams in violet rain and wind. Nungalinga, Sam Greenway once told Molly Hook. That's the Dreamtime ancestor in charge of the cyclones and storms that tear the tin skin off town pubs and stores with a single whistle from his lips. Sam said Nungalinga is angry at all the white settlers who kept landing in Port Darwin, keep skipping ashore with their pickaxes and shovels to chip away at Old Man Rock. Nungalinga, Sam said, lifts fishing boats from the sea, sucks them into the air and bats them 100 yards through the wind against shore rocks that smash metal hulls the same way all those white settlers smash the cells of fat, clawed East Point mud crabs. The Darwin dream has a smell, and it smells like the maggots eating all those discarded crab claws. It smells like all the cut ends of vegetables left to rot in Chinatown bins that dingoes and lost dogs tip over after dark. Darwin dreams in drink and sweat, warm beer and toil, fat-bellied fist fighters and men who piss in buckets beneath their bar stools. Empty car bodies left abandoned in the streets outside town by empty men who shot themselves dead inside them. It's frontier territory where nothing stays nailed down. America's Wild West, all the way down here in Australia's Wild North. Some came by boat, and some just emerged from the dust. They crawled out of the dirt and dusted off their shoulders and staggered into the Victoria Hotel on Smith Street for 3 shots of black rum, then a glass of water. Darwin dreams in dinner dances and wood-chopping contests and travelling freak show tents where Sydney wolf boys and Melbourne pig girls reel in horror at the ticket-buying Darwin locals staring at them through the glass. Van Diemen Gulf and Snake Bay to the north, South Alligator River to the east, the rum jungle to the south, and beyond it all, the vast ancient wetlands and wilderness of Molly Hook's wild dreams. The prehistoric stone and vine country, the deep country. Suffocating monsoon forests and tidal flats and jagged plateaus and rock formations that tower over the city buildings of the London and New York and Paris in Molly's head. Giant tree rats just on the outskirts of town, killer snakes beneath your bed, killer spiders crawling up your trouser legs. Here are Japanese pearling crews tying down rickety luggers in Darwin Harbour. Here are Christian missionaries instructing Aboriginal servants whose families once sang on the land where they now dust down church pews. Drunk and wealthy cattlemen and their mistresses skinny dipping in the voluminous water tanks of the abandoned Vestey's meatworks at Bollocky Point. Sunburnt stockmen clocked off and rolling dice in a Mitchell Street gambling hall. There are hardly any cars on the street. Most everybody walks or rides bicycles in the Darwin dream. A fat and drunk man sleeps on the toilet seat of a hot tin earth closet on a corner of Nucky Street. Molly blocks her nostrils with her forefinger and thumb as she passes. The man's long drop waste will sit for days before being mercifully burned. There's the state school bus that's been parked on Peel Street for the past month, a rusting semi-trailer with a long rear tray. On the days when her father bothers to send her to school, Molly and her mates sit beneath a mesh cage, their arse bones bouncing hard on the metal tray at every pothole on the road to Darwin Primary. Molly ambles barefoot into Chinatown. Half a century ago, the Chinese outnumbered the Europeans here 4-1. Horace Hook told his daughter once that the Orientals, the Celestials, called Australia the New Gold Mountain, while California was the Old Gold Mountain. Then the new gold finds got old too, and half the Chinese left. The other half stayed to keep breaking their backs for 5 shillings a day, building the railway line from Port Darwin to the gold fields of Pine Creek.
Then, when the railway line was finished, Horace said, when there was no more hard labour to be done by the Chinese, the government told 'em they'd best not lob in here no more. Horace considered that for a moment. Nice bastards, eh? Molly nods to an old Chinese woman selling green mangoes from a table at the side of the wide yellow dirt road of Kavanagh Street. She passes a Chinese tailor, a Chinese fruit market, a stonemason's workshop. 4 Chinese fishermen walk alongside a thin and hungry brown horse, pulling a cart filled with the day's haul of trap-caught fish off Fanny Bay. Another old woman in front of a vegetable market stirs a pot of seafood soup. A Chinese boy, by her side, wears a white, long-sleeved shirt and white pants. His hair is tied by a band in the centre of his scalp, and it sprouts from his head the way a bunch of celery rises from dirt. His top button is done up so tight his neck fat spills over his collar. He blows on a red paper windmill, spinning on the end of a bamboo stick. Corrugated iron sheds of blue-grey and rust, and Chinese characters on the subtlest signage lining entryways to stores and workshops. Families of 14 share ramshackle 2-storey dwellings made of scavenged materials, old car bonnets and flattened and nailed kerosene tins turned into walls. While the wealthy whites who frequent these markets and stalls live in raised houses where they sip gin on wide latticed verandas and their air blows against wet kerchiefs around their necks. Molly sees old Chinese men with hollowed cheeks and white chin hairs, finger-shaped so that their beards look like white flames when they blow in the Darwin breeze. One, who has only a bottom row of teeth, rests his backside on a wash bucket as he nails a heel back onto his right black slipper, a smoking pipe gripped in his left fist. Molly stops briefly outside her favourite store. Feng Chiong Lung's rambling giftware and clothing shop, filled with Chinese dolls and red and blue and green Chong Sams and camphor wood boxes carved with the outlines of dragons and emperors and Chinese princesses. She walks past the Crown Bakery and Sons Inc. tailors to the 2-storey white-walled bloodhouse of Gordon's Don Hotel. She creeps up to the sprawling pub's swinging entry doors and sneaks a look inside, eyes drawn straight to the bar, just as 2 stockmen in shorts fall down arm in arm singing a song about Ireland. They roll into the stool-bound legs of Horace and Aubrey Hook, and it's Molly's uncle who kicks the Irish beer swillers away with a push of his right boot while keeping a firm grip on a foggy glass of brown spirit. Horace Hook, as if by instinct, turns his slow-moving neck and his bloodshot eyes to the swinging entry doors. He's all shadow, and he's too dark and drunk to know if it's his only daughter standing beyond those swinging doors, or if, in fact, it's the ghost of Lisbeth Fleming, and she's come to collect what rightfully belongs to her, Horace Hook's grey-coloured heart and the pitch-black soul of his older brother, Aubrey. Molly rushes backwards from the swinging doors into bustling Kavanagh Street, bumping into a young Chinese woman carrying a tray of purple plums that nearly spill. "Sorry," Molly says, and she runs now because night is here and she needs to go home. She needs to find the red tin thimble. It has to be there. It has to be there. And the few street lights of Kavanagh Street flash on, and Molly runs past A.E. Jolly's store, and Cashman's news agency, and the Bank of New South Wales, and the town post office where not a single letter has ever arrived with the name Molly Hook on its envelope. Run, Molly, run. Dig, Molly, dig. Heart pounding. Dirt roads beneath her feet. Speed, motion, destiny. But wait! There's a face she knows on her left. Stop right here on the spot because it's him. It's Tyrone Power in the flesh, by way of Mataranka, south of Catherine, right here on Smith Street, Darwin. Sam Greenway stands on the footpath beneath the awning of the Star Theatre. He wears a red, long-sleeved stockman's shirt and dirt-covered brown pants, and his black,
broad-brimmed riding hat sits back on his scalp so that his full black mop of hair grows beneath the throbbing awning ceiling bulbs. He's laughing hard, and his big wide smile is as bright as the lights that border the partly open-air cinema's roof lining and climb like a string of pearls to a shining ornamental night star rising over Darwin. The same kind of star that drew wise men from the east to Jerusalem, Molly thinks, is now drawing her and Sam Greenway to the silver screen worlds of Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire and God's other sacred child, Shirley Temple. The star's playing Daryl F. Zanuck's Jesse James tonight, and that title is stretched breathtakingly across the theatre's marquee wall in pistol-shot Wild West lettering. Molly is about to call out to Sam, but she bites her tongue in the darkness of the street because she realises Sam is in the company of two teenaged girls. Aboriginal girls with pretty smiles and long legs, older than Molly. So old that Molly can see how their breasts are filling out their Sunday school dresses. Other Aboriginal families file out of the theatre around them. There are no white families at the pictures tonight. Of course, those girls see in Sam what Molly sees. They see his spark, his light, his Hollywood charm, and they stare at it wide-eyed and dumbfounded, slack-jawed and spellbound by a brief and impromptu cowboy show Sam is giving right there on the footpath. He fixes his cowboy hat and snarls in the face of an imaginary Wild West lawman. "Well, Marshal," he says in his thickest Missouri accent, "I'm just about done here listening to you rabbit on about my indiscretions, and I'm gonna guess your hand don't move half as quick as your mouth." Sam's right hand fingers dance above a curved, oversized red and green apple-flavoured candy cane hooked like a pistol over his brown leather work belt. Then his hand moves so fast that Molly sees nothing whatsoever between the candy cane vanishing from Sam's belt and it reappearing, raised in his right hand and firing 3 shots that explode from his film sound effects lips as his left palm speed-cocks an invisible pistol hammer. When the deed is done and the imaginary lawman lies bleeding in the dirt, Sam triumphantly blows smoke from the candy cane pistol shaft. In a flurry of movement worthy of a circus act, he spins the pistol vertically on his right forefinger, then shifts it into a horizontal spin that lasts a full minute. And those young women he came to the pictures with are so mesmerised by his cowboy skills, they can only giggle because their bodies are too frozen by awe to clap their hands. Then, as fast as the pistol was drawn, it is holstered tightly and securely back in Sam's belt. Only now do the girls clap. Sam tips his hat to his audience with a wink. "And what brings you fine ladies to a no-good, blood-sucking town like—" His words are cut short by an imaginary bullet in his back that sends him staggering forward into the arms of his audience. "Oh, it's that fella Bob Ford," he coughs, imaginary blood spilling from his cowboy lips. "He done shot me in the back." Sam falls grandly to the ground, the last beats of a short and tragic cowboy life pulsing out of his shoulders. "Please, ma'am," he whispers to the taller of the 2 young women, "would you grant this sorry outlaw one last kiss before he rides off into hell?" And Molly sees from the darkness of the road that the cowboy's dying wish is granted. The tallest girl kneels over Sam and gently places a kiss upon his lips. A kiss that seems to Molly to last as long as most of the features that show on the star's big, white picture screen. And of course, Molly is not the girl to grant that kiss, because Molly never dug enough graves to buy the blue satin dress to wear to the pictures, and Molly could never look so tall and so beautiful as that lucky, full-busted girl in her Sunday best, because Molly's always 6 feet deep in dirt and dead folks. Sam closes his eyes for the cowboy's last sleep. The older girls howl with laughter, and Molly treads lightly to the scene and stands over her friend Sam, feeling, for the first time in her life, every heavy ounce of her inherited heart that's slowly turning to stone inside her chest.
"Hi, Sam,"
she says softly. Sam opens his eyes. He beams wide.
"Hi, Moll,"
he hollers. He springs to his feet.
"I didn't know you were coming out tonight."
He looks her up and down.
"You're going to need shoes on if you want to catch the next picture. All the whites are coming back for bogey in High Sierra. We just seen Jesse James. You would have loved it. They had that Tyrone fella you like playing Jesse."
"Tyrone Power," Molly says flatly. Sam looks her up and down again, deeper this time.
"You all right, Mom?"
The tall girl wants to go.
"You coming, Sam?"
she asks.
"We're all swimming under the stars at Bestie's."
Sam smiles.
"I'll catch up later,"
he says.
"I want to stick with me little outlaw mate here for a bit."
The older girls turn, stroll away along Smith Street.
"I'm not so little,"
Molly says, her eyes turned away. Sam chuckles, nods his head. "Yeah, I know, Moll. You're bigger than Bogart in my book." He pats her shoulder.
"Wait here for a second," he says, excited. "I want to introduce you to a friend of mine."
He disappears down a lane off Smith Street. Molly sits in the gutter, rests her elbows on her knees. Horse hooves clop along the dirt road of Smith Street, and Sam moves into the light, bouncing gently on a saddle tied to a handsome dark chestnut horse with white markings on its lower legs, like it's wearing long socks.
"This is Danny," Sam says,
a hand rubbing the horse's crest.
"He's a hot blood colt, Moll. Real fast, fit as a bull. Danny and me have been down south hunting them buffalo through the rum jungle. He never stops, this fella. Jumps on them beasts like lightning striking. Bang!"
Sam holds his hand out to Molly. He turns into Jesse James once more. He turns into Tyrone Power.
"Ma'am, would you grant a lonely cowboy the pleasure of your company?"
he asks. That impossible smile. Molly Hook cannot hop up onto that horse tonight. Molly Hook needs to get home. But Marlene Skye can take that young man's hand. And Marlene Skye does. The moon and the stars and Molly and Sam and Danny clip-clopping towards the Timor Sea. Molly's arms around Sam's hard, flat stomach. Her tired head resting on his shoulders, his warm shoulders. The Darwin heat even at night time, making him sweat beneath his riding shirt. The smell of earth and horses and land, and the hope of some alternative road that extends beyond Hollowwood Cemetery. Sam revels in Danny's wonder, explains in vivid detail how the horse made him shine in front of his aging boss, Walt Hale, co-owner of Johnston Traders, one of the region's most seasoned buffalo hunting outfits, which has ties right back to the 1840s when the Asian buffalo was brought to the rapidly colonised Coburg Peninsula for meat and milk. The multiplying and soon wild buffalo took a liking to the Northern Territory's vast coastal floodplains, and canny riflemen, like Walt's father, Paddy Hale, made a fortune sending buffalo hides overseas and across the country to become industrial-grade leather coverings and belts. The buffalo horns became inlays for gun stocks and fancy handles for knives that international hunters could use to kill more beasts to make more belts and knife handles.
"But it ain't no picnic bringing a buffalo down," Sam says. "They don't just drop like pigeons, Moll."
Sam kicks his boot heel hard into Danny's belly, and the horse clicks to a trot and then to a gallop. Raised coastal houses pass across Molly's vision in a blur, and she holds tighter to Sam's stomach.
"Yeah!"
he hollers, and the hot blood colt speeds along the esplanade towards Darwin Harbour, and Sam holds the reins in one hand as he leans over far. Too far, Molly says, to his left like a circus rider.
"You gotta get your horse right up close to that charging and blustering buffalo, and you gotta get your rifle tip right against the head," he shouts.
He extends his left arm like it's a rifle in his hand.
"You put that rifle so close you want it touching its cheek. But you need a quick, brave horse to do that for you. And that's what Danny here is. One hand keeping Danny steady and one hand on the trigger. Bang! Danny slows to a walk, passing the Lamoureux Baths and Lamoureux Beach, and Molly wonders if even the horse is stunned into silence by what they see filling the black night waters of Darwin Harbour. United States Navy warships, moonlit and starlit and spotlit. The reflections of the still harbour waters shimmering against their grey sidings that run on for 100 yards and more. They are as lengthy to Sam's eye as the dead grass Australian rules football fields he bounces around on with his cousins, as wide across the beam as the cricket pitches he mows into the lawn behind the church. Molly tries to count all the ships, and she loses track around 50. Sam's eyes are drawn to an American destroyer. The last time he can recall seeing something so big was when he rode 200 miles east from Darwin to the Arnhem Land escarpment with his Uncle Ernie, and they saw Burgundy Rock lit up by the sunrise. The destroyer is the same shape as that old sandstone rock, but Barunga isn't fixed with the guns the destroyer has. Sam counts them. 5 guns in single mounts. Can't see the torpedoes, he says, wide-eyed. Patrol boats, auxiliary minesweepers, depot ships, examination vessels, American and Australian troop ships carrying men in white shirts Molly can see moving back and forth across decks with the same frenetic pace the moths have when they flap around her reading lamp. Dad reckons the Japs are coming to Darwin, Molly says. Sam heals Danny and they move on towards Stokes Hill Wharf. Your dad's right, Mol, Sam says. That dirty old war's coming to us now. Molly fixes her grip on Sam's stomach. Look at all them boats packed in there like sardines, Sam says. They should spread them fellas out, make 'em harder for those Japs to hit. These boats make no sense to Molly in the Darwin dream. These warships make no sense. Purple plums belong in Darwin, Molly tells herself. Cyclones make sense in Darwin. The heat belongs in Darwin, the eternal sweat. Warm beer makes sense here, and hand-woven baskets on market stall tables. Fat barramundi belong here and saltwater crocodiles. And the box jellyfish whose sting will make you wish you'd never learned how to swim in Darwin Harbour in the first place, or even kill you outright. Purple plums in the arms of young Chinese women. Purple plums make sense. Is this a dream, Sam? Molly asks, her left cheek pressed against Sam's right shoulder blade. Her eyes look out to the long, curling, wooden deck wharf running deep into the black harbour, its cast iron and concrete supports covered in seaweed slime and mollusk shells. Cars and bodies and cranes move around the wharf deck unloading and loading a hulking naval cargo vessel some 120 yards long and 15 yards wide. I blacked out in the kitchen today, Molly says. I don't even remember how I got into town. I feel like I just woke up outside Ward's boutique. Danny clops along the beachfront. The gravedigger girl holds Sam tighter. Danny stops. Sam looks out beyond the wharf. On the horizon, 3 jagged lines of lightning split the sky, turning it violet. The lightning man's coming, Sam says. Molly knows about the lightning man. Sam's grandfather was the one who first told him about the lightning man. The spirit god who rides high in the sky on a high-speed vehicle made out of storm clouds. Wish I had me one of those to get around on, Mol? Sam said. He told Molly the lightning man has powerful ears that know things, that know the weather, and from these ears the lightning man shoots rods of electricity down through his storm cloud to the ground. But you don't run from the lightning, Sam said. You go to it, because the lightning man's trying to tell you where to find what you need. The lightning man comes, and then all the good water and food comes with him. Another lightning strike in the blackness far beyond the busy wharf. I'm leaving here tomorrow, Molly, Sam says.
Where are you going?
Molly asks. I'm going to the lightning, Molly. Molly releases her grip around Sam's belly. Me family, he says. They're going bush. They're going deep, Mol.
Do you have to go?
Molly asks. Big gathering, Sam says. A lot of talking needs to be done with the elders about what's coming with this war and where we all go from here.
Where are you all gathering?
Molly asks. I can't tell you that, Mol. Molly wraps her arms around Sam again.
Take me with you,
she says.
I'll go with you right now. You go ahead and give Danny a big kick in the belly and we can ride away right now. Tonight. Just go deep into the bush, so deep we never come back.
Sam turns his head to speak closer to Molly's ears. You're not allowed to go where I'm going, Molly. Molly closes her eyes, silent for a full minute.
Do you care for me, Sam?
I care for you a lot, Mol, Sam says. But I'm 16, and you're 12, and...
I'm almost 13,
Molly says. Sam nods, smiling.
And you're almost 13,
he says, breathing deep to finish what he has to say. And I don't think it'd be right for me to care for you the way you want me to. This heavy stone heart. Cry from it, Molly. Cry, she tells herself. But she can't cry, so she opens her eyes again and slides off the horse, walks to a large rock embedded in the sandy banks of the harbour, and sits.
Will Longcoat Bob be there?
She asks. Sam slips off Danny too, holds the horse's reins as he talks to Molly's back. Nobody knows where he is, Sam says. He's been on a long walk, longest he's ever been on. Nobody's seen him in almost 2 years. Molly drops her head, traces the circle of the night sky moon in the sand with her right big toe.
Sam?
Yeah, Mol?
Remember I told you about the sky gift?
Yeah, Mol. I remember. Molly traces a twisting road running from the sand moon at her feet.
Remember them words my grandfather etched on the pan?
Yeah, the palms, Sam says.
Directions,
Molly says, correcting Sam.
They were directions, but he wrote them for the eyes of poets. Only people living poetic lives could understand them. You have to be poetic, Sam. You have to be graceful.
Sam ties Danny's reins to the post of a rotting fence lining the beachfront. Directions, huh? Sam says. Molly nods.
I know where the Silver Road is,
Molly says. Sam says nothing.
It's what you called the Glass River,
Molly says.
It's the same thing. Way beyond the Clyde River. The road you used to walk as a kid.
Molly looks up at the night sky moon.
I'm going to leave this place too, she says. Everybody else goes away. Why can't I? I'm going to go find the Silver Road, and then I'm going to find Longcoat Bob, and then I'm going to find my own treasure.
What's your treasure, Molly?
Answers.
Answers to what, Mol?
Why he did what he done to my family? How he's gonna undo what he did.
Sam finds a place on the beach rock beside Molly, and he tells her, not for the first time, his deep, gutted, full-flesh heart feeling about Longcoat Bob's curse. There is no curse, Molly, he says. Longcoat Bob don't work like that. He can't work like that. He's not able. There is only what the land and the sky deems right and wrong. Sam said this before too. It wasn't Longcoat Bob who put the dark on your grandfather, he continues. Only the earth can do that. Only that twinkling stuff up there can do that, Mol. The land and the stars were watching. They both said your grandfather was wrong to do what he done. He took gold from the earth, and the earth didn't want that gold took. The earth rebelled, Molly. It turned on your grandfather. You start walking into places you don't belong, and it might just turn on you too. Molly dwells on this for a long moment. Then she stands.
Did you like the film, Sam?
Sam looks up at Molly. Not really, if I'm being honest, he says.
Why not?
You weren't watching it with me. Molly smiles.
Bye, Sam.
She walks away. Molly, wait! Sam calls, but she does not stop. He stands to watch her march into the night, patting Danny the colt's head along the way. Bye, Molly Hook, he whispers, only to himself. Two shadows in the cramped kitchen of the caretaker's house at Hollowwood Cemetery. The Hook brothers, Horace and Aubrey. White, long-sleeved work shirts buttoned to the neck. Black trousers. Both men too drunk to notice they're still wearing their wide-brim black hats inside. Molly standing in the doorway to the kitchen. Horace can barely keep his eyes open. He sways in his chair, reaching once, twice, 3 times for a glass jar with a scratched Queen's Olives label on its side, which is half filled with a clear spirit that smells to Molly like petrol mixed with a splash of tonic water. Aubrey stares at her through the dark slits of his dead black eyes, his right forefinger circling a small glass of the same spirit. Horace's head finally stays still long enough to see his daughter standing expressionless and mute inside the kitchen. Then a thought reaches his clouded brain. Molly knows it's a dark thought. Horace stands abruptly, too abruptly for his blood and his body and brain to catch up with his legs, and he stumbles to his right and trips on his feet, and he falls hard to the ground, his eyebrow hitting the corner of the kitchen stove on the way down. Blood spills immediately from his forehead, and he tries to wipe it away, but he merely wipes it across his forehead so that he looks to Molly like a war-painted Indian in a Gary Cooper western. "Dad!" Molly says, kneeling down, hands out to help her father regain his equilibrium. But he doesn't lean on those hands. He only grabs them and reefs them towards his head before scrambling to his feet and reaching for the razor strop that hangs from a nail by the stove. He pushes Molly against the kitchen table and forces her head down hard, knocking his drinking jar off the table and smashing it on the floor. And Aubrey Hook sits perfectly still, with his right hand gripped around his glass as he stares into the eyes of his niece, while her father flogs her backside and her rear thighs with the razor strop. Up and down and up and down. The movement of the thick leather strop and the pulsing of the kitchen light bulb. Welts upon welts upon welts. Blood upon blood. 10 lashes. 12. 15. 18 in total. And Molly Hook is so truly grateful in this moment for the curse of Longcoat Bob, because her stone heart is surely the only thing that is keeping her from crying in front of her dumb-faced, dark shadow uncle, whose black eyes she refuses to turn away from, no matter how loud that strop whacks, no matter how deep it stings and cuts. Do not look away, Molly. Dig, Molly, dig. Whack and whack and whack and whack. Dig and dig and dig and dig. And Aubrey Hook's lips smile beneath his thick black moustache, and he raises a moonshine toast to the gravedigger girl. And then he howls with deranged laughter, rejoicing in the music he hears in his head, the music made by leather meeting skin. Graves at her command. Sleep, Molly, sleep. Keep the bedroom door shut. Stay right here until they are gone, or until they are dead.
Her bed is a single mattress on a wooden floor by a chaise with a small square mirror. Rising damp in the wood walls. It's morning, well past dawn, and Horace and Aubrey Hook still scream and laugh and bellow beyond her bedroom door. She has her mother's copy of The Complete Works of William Shakespeare, taken from the living room bookshelf and shaken furiously from the landing to expunge the silverfish wiggling through its fertile pages. A black hardback cover, pages yellowing and brittle. She reads with her belly pressed against the mattress to ease the pressure on her throbbing arse and the whip-welted backs of her thighs. Her head leaning over the end of the mattress, her elbows and the open Shakespeare flat on the floor. The gravedigger girl reads The Tempest. It's about the wind and the rain, about the kinds of storms that strike Darwin in the stifling summer, when men like Aubrey and Horace Hook turn strange and vengeful, like Prospero the sorcerer, who can wield the wind and the rain, and who can raise the dead from grim and sorry graveyards.
Graves at my command have waked their sleepers, the girl reads.
Sleep, Molly, sleep. The Tempest feels like a dream to Molly. One great fevered sea dream. Sleep, Molly, sleep.
And like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind, the girl reads. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
And she sleeps. She sleeps for 8 hours, and her empty stomach wakes her in darkness. She can hear her father and uncle outside now. They are in the front yard, working the engine of Aubrey's red utility truck. The motor won't start, and the men bark at the car, curse it for not acknowledging their murderous threats. Molly wants to stand, but standing is no longer so easy with the swelling. She pushes herself up with her arms first, then bends her knees, and that motion puts pressure on her backside and pain shoots through her lower back and into her brain. She opens her bedroom door carefully, slips into the living room on the tips of her toes, the hollers of her long, drunk and stupefied father and uncle still safely at a distance in the yard. She scurries down the house's rear steps to the under-house toilet. Agony now, just to pass a small stool. She drops a scoop of sawdust down the long drop. Back upstairs now, and into the kitchen, where she opens the icebox and pushes aside a bowl of fried sheep's brains and tomato sauce and fills her hands with 3 old pork sausages and a block of mould-covered cheese. She opens a small standalone pantry cupboard to find small stacks of mixed canned goods, spam luncheon meat, edgelled tinned peas, and, the only dinner Horace Hook seems to eat these days, Campbell's condensed oxtail soup. Molly takes a can of spam and a can of peas. She finds a can opener in the cutlery drawer. She fills 2 empty glass pint milk bottles with water and scurries back to her bedroom, closing the door behind her. Molly drops her food on the mattress and places the bottles on the floor, then drags her mirrored chaise across the room and pushes it against the back of her bedroom door. She lies back down on the mattress on her belly, bites an end off a pork sausage. For 2 whole days, barricaded safely behind that bedroom door, she waits out the tempest. And 3 words keep rattling through her mind like a mantra, like an enchantment, like a spell, like a curse. Dig, Molly, dig. Dusk. Molly hears the utility truck pulling out of the driveway. Her bedroom door creaks open and the noise of it makes her pause. She waits for signs of life through the house. Nothing. She scans the house, assesses the silent fallout of her father's and uncle's deep dive into white spirit. Lamps on their side on the floor, Chairs on their side. Broken glass in the hallway. She'll be expected to clean this up. She will not clean this up. She pads into the kitchen. Empty bottles and shattered glasses. A patch of human hair on the floor. Streaks of blood across the walls. Blood and bile vomit in the sink. Molly fills a cup of water, glugs it down. She sits for a moment at the kitchen table. A beer-stained newspaper on the table covered in bush tobacco and ash. Northern Standard. Days old. Weeks, maybe. It's open at a public notice, an order. Molly dusts off the tobacco, holds the paper up to her eyes. Commonwealth of Australia. Northern Territory Administration. Proclamation. Evacuation order. Citizens of Darwin. The Federal War Cabinet has decided that women and children must be compulsorily evacuated from Darwin as soon as possible, except women required for essential services. Arrangements have been completed and the first party will leave within the next 48 hours. This party will include sick in hospital, expectant mothers, aged and infirm, and women with young children. You have all been issued with printed notices advising you what may be taken, and this must be strictly adhered to. Personal effects must not exceed £35. The staff dealing with evacuation is at the Native Affairs branch in Mitchell Street and will be on duty day and night continuously. The personnel who will make up the first party will be advised during the next few hours, and it will be the duty of all citizens to comply at once with the instructions given by responsible authorities. Remember what your Prime Minister, Mr. Curtin, said recently. The time has gone by for argument. The instruction of the federal government must be carried out. The federal government has made all arrangements for the comfort and welfare of your families in the south. Darwin citizens will greatly assist the war effort by cheerfully carrying out all requests. There will be hardship and sacrifice, but the war situation demands these, and I am sure Darwin will set the rest of Australia a magnificent example to follow. Sergeant C.L.A. Abbott, Administrator of the Northern Territory. Molly places the paper back on the table. She pads to her bedroom and slips on her dig boots. Dig, Molly, dig. Dig for your courage. Dig for your soul. Dig for your rage. Bert the shovel leans against her bedroom wall by a window. Bert's been waiting for this moment and Molly knows it. Molly and Bert walk to Horace Hook's bedroom at the end of the long hallway. His door is locked, as always, because Molly and Bert are never to enter Horace's bedroom. Molly raises the shovel in two hands, the way she might point a spear at a lion, and she drives the shovel blade hard and fast into the wood where the lock meets the door. The blade digs in, the old wood splitting and splintering. Molly pulls Bert back and drives him in again and again. Finally, he digs in hard, and Molly puts all her weight on the end of the shovel and the door cracks and flies open. Her father's room is dark and smells of sweat and sick and spirits. The liquor kind and maybe the ghost kind too. She slides under her father's bed, grips a large canvas drawstring duffel bag filled with tools, drags it out and dumps its contents on the floor. Blunt pickaxes and files, hammers and spades. She takes the duffel bag into the kitchen, fills it with every canned food she can find in the pantry. Canned corned beef, canned corn. 1 can of Nestle Sunshine powdered milk. Molly hurries back to her bedroom, finds her leather water bag in the corner of her room beside a wide-brimmed yard hat, which she stuffs in the duffel bag. Back into the kitchen to fill the water bag, then back to her father's bedroom where she digs her shoulder into the side of a chest of drawers. She pushes hard with her legs, her boots slipping on the floorboards but sticking enough to slide the chest of drawers a few feet across the room. 3 wooden panels in the newly exposed floor are shorter than those flanking them. Molly kneels down and finds a crack wide enough for her to slip in her right forefinger and pull one panel up. Her left hand removes the other 2 panels, then her right hand reaches into the space not more than 1 foot deep between the bedroom floorboards and the underhouse ceiling. She knows what she's looking for. A black metal box, lidded and locked. Not much bigger than the square shortbread biscuit tins lining the shelves at A.E. Jolly's store in town. She does not replace the panels or slide the chest of drawers back where it was. There is no time for that now.
While we have time, she says to herself, let us do good.
The Japs are coming. Time is running out. There is only time enough to be good. Darkness now in Hollowwood Cemetery. Molly carries a kerosene lamp, but she could find her way through this cemetery without a light. She could close her eyes and make it through this death hall just by running her hands over the shapes of the cemetery headstones. Martha Sorensen, 1842 to 1908. Granite stonework, ridgetop contouring. In loving memory of dear mother. Someone might be alive today who misses Martha Sorensen the way Molly misses her mother. Teddy Byrne, 1854 to 1904. Limestone in a beveled block. Sure is dark down here, Teddy offers on his headstone. Teddy reminds Molly to laugh. Edwin Harper, 1803 to 1887, reminds Molly to carry on. Edwin Harper, robbed, stabbed twice in neck, 22 years. Survived sinking of Fortuna, 33 years. Met June Mooney, 35 years. Farewelled June, 83 years. Died, 84 years. Norman Ballard, 1877 to 1926. Blue pearl granite, Gothic top contouring. The end and reward of toil is rest. Molly cannot rest. Not yet. Not until she has opened the black metal box tucked under her left arm. Bonnie Russell, 1865 to 1923. Grey limestone. Apex top contouring. An epitaph line that Molly hopes every night in her sleep will turn out to be true. Death is only a wall between 2 gardens. Molly standing in one garden on one side of that wall, here in the Northern Territory. Her garden filled with ironwood trees and fern-leaved grevilleas with orange flowers, the colour of fire. Her mother, Violet, on the other side of that wall, standing among roses, red and pink roses, and nothing else. She's smiling. She's waiting. So much love inside a cemetery. So much loss. But so much love. It's the one thing Violet appreciated about grave digging. She called it the romance of the cemetery, though Horace never understood what she meant. Ain't nothing romantic about it, he said. Just holes for dust and bones. But Violet saw the poetry in the place. She saw those lines on Sherry Lawson's grave. 1854 to 1917. India red granite, a serpentine contour on top. Every day at 3:30, a whispered name, Cherie, and you sail back to me, across the eternal sea. A simple line of love for Henry Prendergast, 1866 to 1909. I miss your hand in mine. The simple reflection on the life of Hazel Collins, 1854 to 1926. Died grateful, died loved. The harrowing epitaphs to children. Violet Hook told Molly that these reminded her to be grateful. Love lies below, hope flies above. We held you for a day, we hold your heart forever. They reminded Violet of all she stood to lose. Molly's yellow lamp lights up the darkened cemetery lanes. Her duffel bag hangs on her back with the strap stretching from her left shoulder to her right hip. Bert the shovel rests like a sheathed sword between her shoulder blade and the bag strap. All these gravestones she knows so well. All these life lessons from people in the beyond. Marion Curtis, 1854 to 1908. Loved in life, lamented in death. Lucille Clifford, 1823 to 1874. While we have time, let us do good. Molly was raised on these lessons, these headstone messages to God, all that trust in faith. Blessed are the pure in heart. Eternity be thou my refuge. I know that my Redeemer liveth. A lonely scene shall thee restore. Last words left behind by the dead. Concluding truths after lifetimes endured. But can she believe them? Can she believe the words of Eunice Milton, 1875 to 1934? Don't grieve, for what we lose comes around in another form. Because Molly likes that one. She wants to believe in Eunice Milton. She won't grieve the loss of her mother, because Violet Hook is still here, in another form. Molly just hasn't found her yet, but she's here. She's come around again. Now the night sky speaks to her. What makes you so sure, Molly? The night sky asks. I can feel her, she says, because to respond to the night sky like this is to be graceful and poetic. Where can you feel her? Everywhere, Molly says. In trees, in flowers, in the rocks, in the dirt. Molly rushes on with her lamp. Did she come back around in another form? Molly asks the night sky. You've been talking to the day sky again, haven't you? A little bit, Molly says. It's a lie, Molly. What is? The day sky. Be wary of the things it tells you. The day sky is an illusion. It's a trick. You believe it's so blue and so real, you can touch it. But the truth is, Molly, the day sky is just more of me. More black, and the black goes on forever. A boundless sea. A black sea, with no shore, the night sky says. Never ending or beginning. Never to be trusted. In the southwestern corner of the cemetery, she stops at a gravestone. Molly has found the grave she's been looking for. Thelma Leonard. Upright limestone. Oval top contouring. She places her lamp beside the headstone. She slips off her duffel bag and holds the black tin box in two hands. She runs her fingers over her target connection point, a small hanging padlock at the centre of the tin box. Then, with a fierce swing of her gravedigger girl arms, she smashes the tin box against Thelma Leonard's headstone. But the box does not break open. There are items in the box, hard and small, and they rattle and bang against the insides as though Molly's holding a box of lit Chinatown firecrackers. Molly tries again, with another rabid, wild gravedigger girl swing that dents the box but does not break it open. What are you doing, Molly? The night sky asks. I'm putting it all back, she says. You don't have time for this, Molly, the night sky says. The pubs are closing in town. They'll be home soon. What makes you so sure? Night sky tells no lies, Molly. Molly looks up to the black sky blanket beyond the hanging leaves of the milkwood tree. She looks back down at the black rock frog rock. This is the end of CD3. The book continues on CD4.